Iris! Iris! Zero! Hang in there, Iris! Please, stay away from Tradin Faves. Let's live together in a world where only Diddy Kong Racing DS remixes exist. Iris, there's no channel for just Diddy Kong Racing DS remixes. It's only a fantasy. Yes, I know. But I wanted to believe it. I wanted to live in a world where the channel performs better for the algorithm. With you. Iris? Iris! 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 Ah, no! This isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on! What am I making videos for? Welcome back to the show, everyone.
Oh, boy. So you know this image that says, like, hang on, I have to roll 1d4 psychic damage?
Yeah.
I wasn't ready.
Roll your d4s now, everybody. Okay, before people attack me in the comments, I know that's from X4, and we're not talking about X4 today, we're talking about the original Mega Man X. But in my defense, this is probably the only Mega Man X game we'll cover on the channel, at least most likely, or if we do, it'll be a while before we go back to this series. And so I felt like this is my only opportunity to specifically reference that iconic scene and have it be relevant.
Oh my goodness. And the Oscar goes to...
anyone but me.
Somebody else.
Somebody else on a different podcast. Alright, well, welcome back to Tradin Faves, where we play games on our own time and discuss our favorite parts. The topic of today's discussion, as promised last time, is Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo.
Here we go.
We've got some things to discuss. I say it's Mega Man X, but actually it's going to be like a Mega Man X discussion hiding behind a bigger discussion about like sequelitis and internet media.
Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. That'll be like the first. That'll be the first thing we talk about. But there's a lot to talk about with this game. Like when you told me we were doing this, I was like, oh, okay. There's a lot to unpack here. it's
time to get into some forbidden sealed memories. Alright, first thing we like to do on our show is ask a general question just to banter about with each other, but also to ask you, the viewers, to leave a comment. Today's question comes from an interesting place in that Mega Man X was kind of this game for me, but what was a game that a YouTube video persuaded you to play? It could be like a video essay or a let's play, or I mean, I'll be generous too. Let's say even like if somebody was live streaming a game, like if an internet personality made a game look appealing to you, what was that game?
Yep.
So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this, David. What's an example of a game like that?
This is so interesting. There are so many. Like, I actually sat there and I had to look at, like, the list of games that...
Yeah, I knew there was a couple in my case, too. I limited it to 3. But...
Well, because even... There's stuff that we've already covered here on... like, on our podcast, because, like...
Yeah.
You know... Pseudo Regalia, I watched that Nitro Rad video, We briefly talked about Undertale, and like I found that because of Steam Train of Ross and Barry playing that. And even you could technically count Chrono Trigger the musical, like I already had the game, but that was the thing that persuaded me to actually pick the game back up and start playing it.
Mm-hmm. And to play it to the end.
Yeah, and mind you, I have, like, an astronomically large list of games that I actually have saved on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
With, like, links to YouTube videos where I was like, okay, if I want to find this is what I look for. I will get to this eventually. Like, this list is long.
Mm-hmm.
But the one I ultimately decided to say that it was actually Bug Fables. It was a game that I watched Arlo his review of it, and I was like, "Yo, this game looks sick." And then I picked it up, and guess what? Spoiler alert! It is. If you love Paper Mario, like specifically like the first and like Thousand Year Door, like that style of gameplay, Bug Fables is like the spiritual successor, like the natural evolution of the games. It is unbelievably good, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's probably going to be a podcast episode one of these days.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I've held off from engaging with like any media regarding it, so that way I can get a fresh experience on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, it's quite similar. Obviously, like we talked about Super Metroid. I don't think that one was the result of like a single YouTube video, but I just kept seeing YouTube videos on Super Metroid. And so I finally just broke down and was like, you know what? I need to play this.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a poor kid at the time. And then Nintendo was like, hey, have it for free. And I was like, okay.
I win.
Back in the days of Club Nintendo, I was like, now I'll definitely play it. There's some other ones that I played this year that I found because of YouTube stuff, like the space shoot 'em up called Eschatos. I think you actually got me that for Christmas.
That's right. I forgot. You just showed me your I think it was like your Steam wish list, and you're just like, and I was like,
you're like, I don't know what this is, and I was like, I want it.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, hey, this is within my budget for Christmas. Here you go. Merry Christmas.
Yep. And then, of course, another like notable one for me, since this game has, as all my friends can attest to, this has been the case throughout the entire year, Elden Ring has become my personality.
I can confirm the amount of times I've looked at Discord, and it's just been like, Joseph is playing Elden Ring.
I've played through it 3 times in just this year. And twice through the DLC.
Oh, man.
Oh, but that was one that I wouldn't say I think I found it because Arlo like played a demo and he was like, "Wow, this is good." But then also I remember like watching the Game Grumps playthrough, and I don't know, I really enjoy the Game Grumps playing the FromSoft games because like I suck at them anyways, and they are extremely difficult. And seeing somebody who, like, everyone always, like, lauds their criticism and it's like, this guy's bad at video games. Seeing him get through those games gives me kind of the motivation to be like, oh, I could do it.
If he can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron Hansen catching strays this entire episode.
I will sort of play the role of devil's advocate for him, but
we'll talk about stuff.
Yeah. All right. To properly commence our show, though, everyone else sound off in the comments. I want to hear games that you might not have taken a look at, but then you saw a video somewhere or saw somebody playing something. We're just like, oh, I gotta try this. But to actually get into things, the first thing we like to do is talk about our history with a given game or franchise. We've covered, in general, like, our experience with Mega Man, like, as a whole.
It was buried in our Smash Bros. Video, so I don't fault people for not knowing.
I've noticed a couple of times we do that, we're like, oh, just go see the Smash Bros. Episode. It's like 13 hours.
It's like our like 3-part like super video.
Yeah, if you combine all 3 parts into one thing, it's our longest time spent on a game.
Mm-hmm. Had a lot to say.
But like the very cliff notes how we found the Mega Man franchise was mostly through like the Battle Network series.
Yes.
Because we were avid Game Boy Advanced players, and so that was that was where Mega Man showed up first for us. We also ended up getting like the classic collection on GameCube, little things like that.
Yeah, for me, so this is gonna be, I gotta set the stage for this episode for me. Cause
maybe I should, since I, most of what I'm gonna have to say is in response to what you're gonna say, maybe I'll just give like the short version of my history.
Yeah.
Because I know you're about to unload.
Listen, I'm charging the Buster, like. It's coming for you.
Yeah. It is. And it's the upgraded Buster too.
It's the good one.
Yeah. So I specifically found the Mega Man X series because of, Sequelitis, the very popular series created by Ego Raptor, also known as Aaron Hansen. And I remember specifically you showed me the video. Because you were just like, whoa, look at this guy who's like talking about like game design and stuff. And I was like, I can't remember how old I was. I was so young back then, but I was just like, I like game design. I want to see. And just like I instantly fell in love with that video, and it sort of like kickstarted my passion for like analyzing game design. But then it was still quite a while before I actually tried Mega Man X. I'd been vaguely aware of that series and like the mixed opinions that people have on different games in the series, but like I'd like heard the soundtrack to the game, and I'd seen a bunch of Let's Plays of the game. But then it was when the Wii U eShop was closing down, and they had a bunch of games available that I was like, this is the cheapest that I will be able to get this game for a while, so like I should just snag it right now. And that's how I ended up like playing it.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting that I'm the one who showed you that video.
It's
considering.
You wanna go for it?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, because like, our history's pretty similar with just Mega Man in general.
Yeah.
Battle Network 3, I'm gonna just put this out there. Best Mega Man game. Just no notes.
I agree.
That game freaking rules. It's so good.
It's one of my most favorite video games of all time.
And again, like I fell in love with the classic games.
Yeah.
Like I haven't played them all because I hit Mega Man 8 and it was like the brick wall that just stopped me. But like I've been slowly making my way through them, and I absolutely love them. I've actually, because we played this, I've been like, man, I need to pick up classic Mega Man, but I've had other games like releasing in rapid succession that I've been trying to beat. And so I haven't had the chance to. I listened to the Megas. I've actually spent all week, like, on my drive to and from work, just listening to their songs.
Their music is so good,
It's so good. And, like, I really, like, did the deep dive when I read, like, the Archie comics, like, run of, like, the Mega Man. 'Cause, holy crap, those are so good.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause, I jumped in because, oh, hey, Sonic and Mega Man had a crossover, written by the same guy, and I'm like, well, I like Sonic, I like this Mr. Ian Flynn, and then I like read his Mega Man stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this is so good, and then it unceremoniously just got dropped by Archie because they suck. So anyway, needless to say, I was big into Mega Man. I like Mega Man a lot, and then. Especially, like, classic era Mega Man, I really grew to love it. And so, because of this, I was set up to have a lot of bias, just due to, like, circumstances, against Mega Man X, like, the X franchise. And so, spoilers for my ending, my final thoughts about this game. I like this game.
Yay.
Like, I will be upfront and say I do like this game. But you need to know just what Joseph was up against when he's like, hey, we're gonna play this game. And I was like, okay, man, I need you to be aware of, like, what can of worms you have just opened.
Yeah.
So, the first thing I guess on here, because you'd mentioned the sequelitis video.
Yeah.
I watched it, and it's so funny that I introduced you to it.
It is.
Because, like, I did, at the time when I first saw it, I was like, this is a solid video. And I still think it is. I think it is a solid video with really great points and observations. That I was like, yeah. And then I watched Game Grumps, which was my first mistake. Like, because I would watch other games that I liked that had similar tutorials, and just watching Aaron not pick up on things and then get mad and start just trash talking a game that I loved. And here's the thing, like, it made me go back and question, like, okay, maybe Aaron didn't make any good points in the sequelitis video then, because here's this other game that's doing the exact same thing, but Aaron is not engaging with it. And so, like, I'm like, maybe Mega Man X isn't as good as he was claiming it was, you know? Like, it just made me, like, second guess every good thing he had to say in that video.
Yeah.
And, like, I think I just don't like watching Aaron, like, play games that I like.
Yeah.
He and I, as I was, like, preparing my notes, I was thinking about this. He and I are kind of polar opposites in that, like, Aaron kind of has this, like, toxic negativity towards games just in general. And I have, like, this toxic positivity towards games where I'm like, like, I go into a game and I'm just like, I'm going to have a good time. I try to have a good time every time and find the best thing. And maybe that's why I ended up liking Mega Man X.
Okay.
Because I feel like if you do go into something with the mindset that this is going to suck, then it's going to suck no matter how good it is.
Yeah.
Versus if you go in with the mindset of, like, this is going to be good, you know, and if you're, like, actively looking for things to like, you will find things that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, I've just learned that I cannot watch Game Grumps play a game that I like. And so, like, I will just have to occasionally just poke my head in the channel and be like, what are they playing? Oh, shoot, they're playing Danganronpa V3. I can't watch this. It will actively hurt my soul.
Listen, like, I am accustomed to the nonsense that goes on the Game Grumps channel. And so, like, I'm having fun watching their playthrough of Danganronpa and, like, other similar games. But I wouldn't recommend them to you because I know how polarizing that channel can be.
It's hard for me to watch. And so, like, I'll watch, like, bits, and even then, I gotta pick and choose my battles. But so that was, like, the first point. Again, didn't totally destroy my love for X. It just kind of left me like, ooh, okay. I'm gonna reevaluate my opinion of this game. So
this is a bad feeling that I now associate with this piece of media.
Yeah, this piece of media that I haven't experienced. So, like, you know, again, didn't destroy it for me, but it was, you know, a notch on the belt, a nail in the coffin. So the second thing, and this was a much bigger, more personal attack that I received with this game.
Yeah.
So, I had roommates that were my friends, and one of them had mentioned, he's like, yeah, no, I've never played a Mega Man game. You know, and like we were talking, and like I was gearing up to be like, oh, hey, I have the classic collection. You can play this. And this other friend I was rooming with swoops in and literally says, just skip classic Mega Man and jump straight to Mega Man X. It's better in every way. And I was like, excuse me? What? Like, I love the classic games. You know, they're hard. There's some jank to them. And like, now that we've played X, I see where he's coming from, and that it's the natural evolution of, you know, classic Mega Man. But also, like, I was like, you just invalidated, like, 7 games that I adore.
So much of the series' identity it owes to those games.
Yes! And so I was like, whoa, hold up, man. You know, and then the other thing, too, was, like, I think that friend that said he should just jump into Mega Man X, I think later he was playing it on the living room TV. And, like, I didn't watch him play it start to finish, but, like, I'd walk in and out of the room. And, you know, like, I watched him do the final boss. Which, we'll get into my feelings about that when we talk about it in the episode.
Yeah.
You know, but it kind of, like, left, like, a, this is better.
This is supposed to be better? Oh, that's funny.
You know, so, like, you know, now we're, okay, strike 2. Then we get to point number 3, which is the comics. So as I mentioned, the Mega Man comics. I freaking love the Mega Man comics. I don't recommend doing this, but I did read through all of Archie Sonic. That is like a Tradin extra just on its own. Or rather just me talking about the roller coaster of emotions I experienced. But, you know, they did the Worlds Collide like crossover event, which is like Sonic and Mega Man together.
Yeah.
And holy crap, it's so good. I literally like went onto Amazon and bought just like the entire like book collection of that crossover. It's so good. Like, I cannot recommend it enough. It's the whole reason I got into the comics to begin with, was I started with that.
Yeah, because you'll buy anything if it's got Sonic slapped onto it.
No, but I'll get pretty dang close.
I'm just kidding.
No, well, okay, side tangent. Like, I was going through a phase of, like, I think I've outgrown Sonic. Like, because this was, like, Pontac and Graph era of, like, writing for Sonic, and I was like, I am not enjoying this.
Sonic Colors Through Forces era.
Yeah, and, like, Sonic Boom was, like, all we had for, like, a good stretch of that.
Yeah.
And then just suddenly, like, I stumbled onto this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy writing this, like, understands Sonic as a character. And, like, Mega Man is super, like, lovable. And, like, this comic is so good. And so, like, I got into the comics because of that. But something that happened in the comics, so they had this whole big crossover event. It was amazing, start to finish. It was so good. And I guess Archie realized that, was like, hey, we like money. Do it again. Even though we just had this big crossover. And, like, we had to reboot the Sonic comics because of legal stuff. And, like, Mega Man was trying to gear up to get into, like, Mega Man 3, I think, was what was going on. Or Mega Man 4. And so, all of a sudden, both plot lines had to grind to a halt so that they could do Worlds Unite. And they're like, okay, how do we up the ante on this then? Because we already just did this big, massive crossover. How do we one-up that? Well, let's bring in other aspects of these franchises. So we got Mega Man X. In addition to, like, classic Mega Man X shows up.
Yep.
And Sigma is our main antagonist. Again, we will get to my feelings about Sigma.
Yeah, we'll get to my feelings too.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, that's what we're pulling from the Mega Man aspect. What are we pulling from Sonic? The Boom universe.
Yeah.
And, like, legitimately what we pulled from Boom was Styx, which, if you're gonna pull anyone from that, at least you pick the best character in that franchise. And then 2 of, like, the obnoxious, useless background characters that just heck off for the entire comic.
Are you telling me you don't love the most beloved Sonic character, Fastidious Beaver?
No, I hate him.
Okay. I won't try to change your mind then.
And so, like, and the thing too was that, like, for like 2 or 3 issues of that, the art it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And it was like walls of exposition and dialogue about Sigma and what he was. Because we had to establish him as the main antagonist. And, like...
Yeah.
It eventually got good, because Ian Flynn didn't even want to write this, and so he's like, I'm gonna break the bank and take every Capcom and Sega rep I can get my hands on for this comic, just so that they will never make us do it again, because I cannot possibly one-up this. But yeah, and so... And, like, it was frustrating because we just barely did the big crossover and stuff. And so it was, like... It was a frustrating slog to read it.
Yeah.
Because, like, it derailed everything that was going on. And so, again, and, like, Mega Man X being there was, like, the big, like, focus of that arc. And Sigma and stuff. And so I was just like, So let me enjoy classic. I want to watch Mega Man 3. I want to read that.
Yeah.
And then of course, number 4, probably the biggest reason that I did not like the X series was the implications for the classic cast.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the only one that actually really shows up is Dr. Light, and he's, like, the least offensive, because it's like this, oh yeah, no, we still love the classic games, like, slightly, but, like...
But they have to present the new cool thing as the new cool thing.
Well, because it's like, it's never addressed, like, is X, Rock? Is he classic Mega Man? Or is he not? Because if yes, then what in the world happened to everyone else? Where's Proto Man? What happened to Roll? It's upsetting because it's like, it's kind of, I mentioned this in our Chrono Trigger episode about, like, Chrono Cross and my feelings towards that, because it's like, it sort of invalidates the happy ending you were fighting for in that game. And, like, X kind of does the same thing. And then, the inverse, too, is if X isn't Mega Man, then where is he? Like, is my boy dead?
Yeah.
I don't like this. It makes me so upset. And, like, on a tiny, slightly cynical reason for me, it's one of the reasons I love Mega Man Zero, because it kind of does the same thing to X that it does to classic Mega Man.
That's petty.
I know, and like I said, it's the smallest part of me, because I just love Mega Man Zero, but also it's kind of this, like, yeah, you know what? Take that.
Now, okay, before any more points are made, those who are still listening with us that love the Mega Man X series, I promise I'm going to refute all of these. But...
Yeah. Mind you.
Yeah.
I did say at the beginning of this, I do love this game.
Right.
But this is what we went into this episode with, where I was like, dude, I gotta lay it out for you.
Yeah.
I don't like I've never played this game. I haven't seen it start to finish. I've seen pieces of it. You got a lot to do to, like, make me like this game.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I just want you to know what you are getting into.
Right. And I knew some things about your qualms about the X series, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's like minor stuff. Like, I didn't realize how deep this was.
Yes. Like I said, there were some like slights against my love for classic Mega Man that like I was like, dude, you gotta understand, I love this franchise, and X kind of takes a dump on it, and it makes me mad.
Oh boy. Well,
yes. So that was my history
does that cover
with this
everything,
game.
or?
Yes,
okay.
yes. That was the history. Because me and the Mega Man X have a history.
That's fair. Yeah. So here's the thing. I do want to spend more time on this episode talking about the game and why I like the game than on like all of these points that you brought up.
I know.
But this is my YouTube channel, and I'm not going to take some of these sitting down.
It's okay. And again, I have since we played this, I've moved past a lot of these. That, like, you know, I'm like, okay, because I can, now having played the game, I can objectively say that this game is good.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm like, I understand and I see why people like it. And again, we'll get into like my final thoughts, and I'll talk more about like my feelings about the game now. But like this is the precursor to us playing this together. You know, and like it was a tough sell for me too. And really the only reason I gave it a shot was because you were the one who recommended it to me.
Yeah.
Which I think is
using that brotherly bond for evil. So kind of to work my way back through a lot of these points that you made, obviously like the first one being like the lore implications and how it affected classic Mega Man. I don't feel the need to push back on those too much because I think that's fair. That is a fair criticism, that it's like, oh, it's like in a different timeline. It's like hundreds of years after the classic series, but also like they're still robots. So like theoretically they could still be alive.
They could. I think it's more just the fact that Capcom doesn't explain what happened is like the most infuriating part. Because it's like, I understand you want me to think that X is cool, but I do love classic Mega Man, and I want to know that my boy is okay. Right.
My main counter to this is just like, hey, The Legend of Zelda is pretty cool, right?
Yes.
And it's about generations, you know, passing on the torch or whatever, the legacy. And in the case of one of my most dear and beloved renditions of Link, the Ocarina of Time Link, he also gets a raw end of the deal.
Yeah.
in terms of lore implications. And in fact, there was just fan theory for a while about what happened to him. And then Nintendo officially went outright and was like, yeah, that skeleton guy in Twilight Princess, that's Ocarina of Time Link. It's like, okay, that's really sad.
That's upsetting, but okay.
And I don't necessarily hold that as a criticism against Twilight Princess or anything. In fact, I think it's kind of cool because they actually give you an indication of what happened. I think the Mega Man X series would be really cool if they had some explanation. Even like, it would be sad, it would be devastating, but if we like found a scrapped rock like there somewhere in the world, like, that would be nuts.
Even just like an implication of like, what I personally would love is if Mega Man gave himself up willingly to become X.
Yeah. I think they used what was there with the original Mega Man to make X. I think that would be better as well.
Well, especially because it would play into a theme across all of the games, which is the spirit of Mega Man and technically Wily, like, live on forever. Like through thousands upon thousands of years. As they keep kind of in the same vein of Zelda, they keep reincarnating, but not necessarily like because they're robots, it's a little more like, no, we're taking this piece of you and moving it forward.
Yeah.
And so
I think that would be neat. You know. And that's the thing. People have been so hungry for a Mega Man X9. And it just seems like one of those things they'll never get.
Yeah.
But that would be a good premise as both like a tribute to all of Mega Man and as well as bringing back the X series. Anyway, other points that you made, talk about like the Worlds Collide crossover and what was the one with X even called?
It's Worlds Unite.
Worlds Unite. Okay, I didn't read that one. I only read Worlds Collide.
There's a reason I made you read Worlds Collide, not Worlds Unite.
I was just about to say, guess why I haven't read Worlds Unite. Here's the thing. That one, like, I also think that's a fair argument for the reason that it's the way that they presented the X series to you, because Worlds Collide was this like passion project fueled by love and wanting to make an interesting and cool story that combines intellectual properties. Worlds Unite was an assignment for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so like even if it goes bigger and it goes better and it uses all these cool new intellectual properties, it was still something that somebody had to make out of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And so a little less of that is there.
Yeah. And
as well as the fact that, like, I was right there with you, the drought of, like, only Sonic Boom content for years.
Mm-hmm.
That was exhausting. And so the fact that it's like, oh, hey, Boom Sonic is here too. Like, I don't mind Boom and like references to Sonic Boom as much now that it has less of a chokehold on the franchise.
Yes.
But like it was all we got.
It was the only thing we got, and I'm gonna say this: constantly belittling your fan base that is sticking with you is not a good way to keep your fan base engaged.
It's true. It's a good way to keep the haters engaged, which was how the Sonic series survived.
Yes. And I do want to highlight too that like the ending was really sick. Like seeing, you know, there's like a panel of like Ryu doing the Hadouken and X being like, oh, I gotta try that. And then like Ken doing like the flaming Shoryuken and Knuckles is like, heck yeah, that's awesome. And then Guile going Sonic Boom and just Sonic like looking so annoyed and unimpressed. like there's good stuff in that crossover. It just came at a very bad time.
It was very poorly timed. And like I will still argue that there's aspects of it that's like, we just did something really cool, and now this is just trying to climb on top of that and say, hey, I'm even better. Like,
yeah. Again, it's that perception. So many of the things happening gave me that perception. I bet I could go back read it now and actually enjoy it.
Right. Especially now that you understand a little bit more about Mega Man X. To quickly get to the point about your friend group, I think it really sucks that your one friend was told to just skip the classic series and go straight to X.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, I will slightly be devil's advocate here, even though I don't completely agree with that take. I will say, in the world of adults who are still fans of video games, you don't always have time to get through every single game, especially when it's like this long-running franchise that's been around since the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And wanting to play every single game in chronological order, that is very difficult to do sometimes. Many people just do not have the time to do it, and so they want to just get to what they know they're going to enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I will turn this devil's advocate back on you, because also this same friend group would always tell me, no, you have to start with this and like play it, you know, like I get what you're saying and I think you're right.
Yeah.
However, in this specific example, I'm like, no.
They would also do, that specific group would also do the exact opposite to you. And that's why I'm kind of like, there's nuance to it. It's not like nuance. One side is wrong or right, but it's... and also just like the Mega Man X games do a lot of stuff that the classic games do already while expanding upon them. And the classic series is very notably and recognizably frustrating to get through because those are difficult games.
Yes.
And compared to the X series, more difficult.
Yup.
So, like, if it's in the interest of saving time, like, I don't fault anyone for starting with Mega Man X. But if you are the kind of player that really appreciates the history and seeing where things come from, I think the Mega Man series especially, it's good to start at the beginning and work your way through.
It just depends on what you want to get out of games.
Right.
If you just want to shoot and blast robots, like, yeah, pick anything. Who cares about
all
the story?
All of them have them. Pick the one that has the coolest box art. Like,
that's not fair to classic Mega Man.
Never mind. Pick the one that has the coolest looking gameplay. All right, and then working my way back to the sequelitis thing, which is how this all started.
Yes.
So I can bookend this. Again, it is so funny that, like, nowadays you are so intensely averse to Aaron.
To the Grumps. Well, it's not even the Grumps, it's just Aaron.
It's just Aaron. But, like, because that was the thing. Before there was Game Grumps, you and I saw sequelitis. Yep. And the reason that I ended up watching Game Grumps in the first place, I didn't even know who JonTron was at the time. I was just like, that's the sequelitis guy, and he's got a Let's Play channel. I love sequelitis. And then, you know, I ruined my life watching Game Grumps ever since. But the main thing about Aaron's point, with specifically, like, tutorials and that, you know, in that Mega Man X episode, was that lots of other games and the way they go about tutorializing people treat them like they're stupid, which I think is a very fair criticism. And a lot of people say, like, oh, Aaron's a hypocrite because he can't pay attention to a tutorial long enough to whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't think that invalidates his points on sequelitis for the reason that being stupid is not the same as being unwilling to engage with a game on its terms. And more often than not, it's not that Aaron is, like, not getting it. It's more so that, like, he's not concentrating on the game. And a lot of times with, you know, specifically games like the Sonic games, which he has a lot of problems with.
Yeah.
He already meets the games on bad terms.
And
so he's not willing to give them a shot. If he were willing to be, you know, to approach it fairly, he probably would just pick up on the mechanics. If he's not riffing with a co-host trying to make an entertaining show, he probably would just play the games fine. This is a man that casually plays FromSoft games in his downtime and beats them. Like, it's not a matter of just being good or bad at video games. And another thing, too, like, this one might sting a little bit, Sonic fans, but not all Sonic games are good at doing tutorials right.
Oh, yeah.
I personally feel like the adventure games are pretty good at the way they do their tutorials. Sonic Heroes, that game is awful in terms of how it presents its information to you. And nobody come at me. I love Sonic Heroes. I don't think it's the best game, but I love it. And I have 100%ed the game twice. So, like, nobody step up to me when it comes to talking about Sonic Heroes, okay? I know this game like the back of my hand.
You know it well enough to know that it's where its flaws are.
And it's not just like, oh, Game Grumps and Aaron's bad at games. I've seen people who are, like, new and, like, going through the Sonic catalog and experiencing Sonic games for the first time. It is always so disorienting, and the information is presented so crudely. And the way that you learn things is by the characters speaking lines of dialogue, saying what to do in a situation where they don't go into depth explaining things. And so you kind of just have to, like, figure stuff out on the fly while really loud and arguably very good music is playing over these voice clips.
Yeah.
It is... And like, you just have so many moves and so many things to do, like, and that's just one example. There's a lot of these other games where people are like, oh, he's just being stupid and whatever, and, like, he doesn't get it, and his sequelitis thing is wrong. I'm like, no.
Mm-hmm. No, and again, because, like, I think you hit the nail on the head, because, and that's part of the thing, too, is trying to sort my feelings about that, because, like, I genuinely believe, I went back and rewatched it in preparation for this, and I was like, yeah, I agree with everything Aaron is saying about how good this game is, and, like, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's, you know, bad faith, like, approaches to a game,
and not even just bad faith, but, like, willingness.
Yeah, willingness. Your willingness to engage with it.
Yeah,
because you know, it's what I was saying earlier about, like, I go into a game whenever I play wanting to have a good time and looking for something to like. Because even I'll throw it back to this our Metal Gear Rising Revengeance episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, that was a game that hit a lot of very sensitive issues for me that I was like, I'm not having a good time.
Yeah.
But I stuck with it because I was like, I still am taking something away from this. And there's a conversation to have here that I would enjoy. And, like, I still look back at that game and I think about, like, the memes and, like, that final boss and how much, like, I still think about that very fondly. And I was like, I'm glad I experienced this game. It's not my cup of whatever it is you want to drink. But, like, I had a good time.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, because I was willing to engage with it on the level that, like, it kind of wanted me to take it a little bit seriously, but also not. You know, it's like, okay, I will treat it the way that it expects me to treat this game, with the serious/not seriousness that it is asking me to.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head on all of these. And again, these were all very circumstantial, but it was very off-putting in the moment.
Yeah.
And so, like,
it created an environment where it would be off-putting.
Mm-hmm. And so, again, you being like, hey, I want to show this to you, and I'd be like, okay, let me lay it all out for you. This is what we're dealing with. And now that you know that, let's go into this game. And you can show me what's good about it. And I will say, you did an exceptional job of showing me why this game was good.
Oh, thank you. I didn't feel like it at the time. I felt some of that heat, some of that ire from
there was
you
a little bit. I think part of it too is I got a little of it out of my system because also a lot of this has been bottled up.
It's true, yeah.
And I've just been like, okay, I have nobody to talk to about this because everyone sings this game's praises. So, like, I guess my opinion's just invalid.
Well, and actually seeing the darn game and what it's about helps.
Yeah. No, well, and not only that, but seeing it with somebody who loves the game.
Yeah.
Like, I think really helped because you were able to highlight what makes the game good for me.
Mm-hmm. And more importantly, loves the game and won't invalidate the other Mega Man games that you love.
Well, not just the other...
while loving this.
The other games that I love, and just kind of like, if I express an opinion, you'd be like, okay, cool, I'll meet you halfway.
Right. Because that was my major mission statement. I wasn't like, I'm going to convince him that this is better than Mega Man Zero, which I haven't played. Like,
it might be.
I knew not to do that.
It might be. We'll see what you think of Zero, because I have weirdly specific reasons why I like Zero.
Okay. And I'm interested in getting to those too. honestly, like, this would have been an amazing transition to just start talking about the game. But I had one more point to make about Aaron. And it's kind of meaningless at this point. But to all the Aaron haters out there, I do just want to say that, like, part of like your issue with how he approaches games on Game Grumps is that he stated this publicly many times, he is playing a persona for the sake of the show. In my personal opinion, that persona is not as funny or as likable as who he is really as a person. Which is personally why, in terms of Game Grumps content, I prefer, like, the 10-minute Power Hour stuff.
Yes.
Or just, like, when they play a game that Aaron likes.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, because, and maybe that's just me, is that, like, his personality is that he's angry and ragey and hates video games, and I'm like, cool.
That's the character.
That's the character that he's playing, and I'm like, cool. I don't like that character.
Yeah.
So, like, why would I watch your show? and so, like, you make the point, though, of, like, the 10-minute power. I love the 10-minute Power Hour. They are so dang funny in that.
Yeah, I think Aaron is his absolute best as an entertainer when he's doing something that he loves.
Yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes to that.
And so when you get to stuff that's like media that the audience loves, that isn't meshing with him, and he's playing this persona of being a grumpy gamer, it doesn't work. But anyway, now to awkwardly transition back to talking about Mega Man X.
No, that was a good point. Let's grab our dash boots now and get this.
Let's zoom through this, because this is already, like, almost an hour.
This is way long. I knew the front bit of this, I'm like, this is going to be loaded.
Preamble. That's why I said we're going to talk about Mega Man X for a little bit, and then we're going to do this for... Alright. To actually steer ourselves back on track, let's talk about the presentation of the game. Mm-hmm. This covers, like, everything that's, like, sensory about it. The visuals, the art style, the graphics, as well as the soundtrack, the sound effects, like, visual and auditory is the name of the game here.
Yeah. For me, visuals, game looks good.
It's a great looking game.
Like, 16-bit, gorgeous Super Nintendo era goodness. Like,
most things on the Super Nintendo look good.
The more we move forward in graphics to, like, that hyper-realism, the more I miss this era of gaming, where, like...
Yeah.
You just get this, like, very detailed pixel art, and it just looks great. I miss it. I miss... Like, I'm not as nostalgic for 8-bit as I am for 16-bit, because 16-bit, you get that extra little bit of juice in there that just, like, give me more of that.
8-bit was the best that they could do, whereas 16-bit is like, they have a lot more freedom, and so they put a lot more into...
It pushes the hardware more, and so it just looks good. Well, and especially, because I think you were the one who told me about, like, you know, the limitations of the hardware, and so they made, like, different sprites for every armor combination.
Because you can get the parts of the armor in...
any order.
I won't say, like, any order, but, like, for the most part, you can get them, like, in very, like, varied orders. And so because of that, they didn't have a way to, like, it's not a character model, so you can't slap the upgrades on the character just with 3D models. You can't, like, overlay sprites over top of the character sprites because it'll cause slowdown on the system for having too many sprites on screen. So they had to draw a separate sprite sheet for X with every, like, possible combination of armor, just in case you get them in a different order than a different player would. And that is commitment.
No, that, like, I hardcore respect that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Overall, the game, like, the sprite work is just incredible, and one of the things you don't really get with classic Mega Man, which is why this transition to Super Nintendo is so great, the environments have so much life in them. You're not just doing these like single square transitions where the background is like a single color. And even like as we get to like Mega Man 4 and 5 and 6, like they really start doing their best with the sprites.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so much more that you can do with the Super Nintendo, and the very first game in the X series takes full advantage of everything.
It's so fascinating because, like, classic Mega Man, I've always said, like, it pushed the limits of the NES. Like,
yeah.
You know, you hear the fan whirring. They're like this game pushes like uses every bit that the hardware can offer. This game, Mega Man X, feels like, all right, the limiters are finally off.
We've dropped the ankle weights. Now let's run.
Exactly. Like, that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like this being the follow-up to Classic Mega Man is also very interesting because they have to adapt the feel of Classic Mega Man, which is, you know, everything, like, because it's so cartoony, you know, everything's very big and obvious and you can, you know, read everything very easily. They have to make it complex, but still feel like Mega Man.
Yeah.
And I've noticed with, like, their character designs and especially their enemy designs, the most important parts of a character on their bodies or, like, on the machines and stuff are larger. So they draw your attention more.
Yep.
Like, because X has, like, a very, like, slender, sleek torso, but then he's got the big, like, gauntlets and fists, he's got a big head, and he's got the big, you know, boots. The big boots. So that way, like, you can recognize him. You can see, like, oh, he's got his big hands, the one turns into the gun so I can shoot, and he's got his big boots, so that way when he's, like, dashing, like, I see what's going on. And then same with a lot of the other enemies, things like the ride armors and stuff, like the big round bodies with the huge fists. And then like kind of like the smaller legs, so they're very top heavy. So, you know, like, oh, this is meant for punching. It's a slow but strong machine.
It's a big bulky boy.
The whole game is full of designs like this where you can just look at it and go like, oh, I get what that thing is trying to do. And that's it's so cool to me.
Yup.
In terms of, like, other visual stuff, too, I love how, like, the world just feels really interconnected. The fact that, like, all of the enemy designs, like, fit in the biomes where they belong. Like, in the jungle area, there's, like, the woodpeckers and the worms and stuff. Like, we'll get to those as we talk about other levels, but, like, the fact that there are things like, the obstacles in the level are based around, like, the order that you play the levels in. So, like, you do the ice level before the fire level, and all of, like, the lava is, like, frozen over. Little, like, visual touches like that are in all of the levels, and they're just... it's so cool!
As well as just having, like, a map to look at, so you get a sense of where everything is. I think that's super cool.
Yeah. I think, like, if I were to criticize anything about the visuals, I would say that it's sometimes, like, the character designs are, like, kind of lame.
Yeah.
Like, some of the bad guys I don't like as much, but then some of the other bad guys are, like, really cool. And, of course, like, X and Zero have very cool designs. So it's, like, the character design is kind of hit and miss for me. Especially as I've seen, like, later, like, villains from later games in the X series, because I haven't played anything else in the X series except for the first one, and I liked it, and I plan on getting to the others later. But, like, when I see some of the other, like, Mavericks and stuff in the other games, it's just like, oh, that's kind of lame.
It's funny, because, like, I think part of the thing, too, is that, because, like, classic Mega Man, it's very cartoony and silly.
Yeah, everything's very, like, doofy and has, like, big bubbly eyes.
You can have a lighter for, a boss. You know, like, right. You can have... And it's not afraid to be silly. Here, X is trying to be, like, the cool, more mature older brother. And so, like, it still has, like, those silly ideas, but then it has to kind of, like, put a little bit of edge to it.
Right, because their approach for these ones, instead of just a guy with one power, is take an animal and combine that with an element to create a villain. Which it works in some cases and it kind of doesn't in others.
Well, we'll talk about them in specifics because some of these are so cool and some of these are so dumb.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to sound?
Yeah. This game has an absolutely killer soundtrack. Like, it's Capcom, it's the Mega Man team. Once again, I don't think Mega Man games have a single bad song. Like, if there are, like, they're fewer and far between.
Yeah, they're like occasional misses, I think, in like some games.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're all pretty solid. For, like, just talking about X, this individual game, the sound design is, like, the high point of this game.
Oh, yeah.
All of the music, the sound effects, everything auditory about this game, it's great.
Yeah, look, I love Undertale and Toby Fox, so I have a special place in my heart for these MIDI guitars.
Yeah, using a bit of the Mega Man X sound font in Undertale.
That's the thing, is like, MIDI guitars is always such a gamble, in my opinion. Like, I feel like the guitar, like, there are a lot of MIDI guitars that just don't sound good, but in the X, like, series, the guitars always sound great.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just, like, that the guitar's sound font is good, it's the way it's utilized in the soundtrack. Because I've heard a lot of people do like, oh, in the style of Mega Man X cover of this video game song, and the guitars sound awful. Like, it is because the sound designers knew what they were working with for this game that this soundtrack is so good. One of the other things, again, this will be a constant theme throughout this, but like the ways that they adapted classic Mega Man onto the Super Nintendo. Classic Mega Man melodies always felt like they were meant to be done in like a rock metal type of style.
Yeah.
Because like I've heard like tons of good remixes in various genres, but it always feels the most right when it's rock and roll. And
go figure.
Like I assume that's very intentional because in Japan it's called Rockman and it's about like rock and roll stuff. So like I assume that's the point. And so now bringing that over here and we have this sort of like this very 90s approach to music, like still heavy on synth, but with a very rock, like a prog rock approach to the soundtrack. It's just like, it's so good.
Yeah. Even the sound effects like are just very, very iconic.
Oh my goodness. Don't get me started on the sound effects.
Well, like, so one of the things, because I was listening to the soundtrack, you know, in preparation for this episode, and the specific compilation that I was listening to, they had like the victory jingle at the end, and they had two versions. They had the version without X's little like fist pump into the air and like that sound effect when he poses.
The little like shing.
Yeah, and it felt so wrong without that. Like I was like, no, that is cursed. And then immediately after that, like the next track was the victory jingle, but with the sound effect, and I was like, that's better. No notes, that's just better.
The sounds are too good. When you hit a boss with like the weapon they're weak against, that like incredibly crunchy sound.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. And the X-Buster in general, I think it makes like the coolest sound effects in the game. All the different like levels of fire depending on how you charge it. And then the fact that like that really like reverby sound when you're revving up like your charge on the X-Buster, just like, and it just like echoes. It feels intense. It's so good.
Yeah, it's just
in terms of sound design and especially like soundtrack, I'd say this is up there with like some of the best on Super Nintendo. I don't know if I'd say it's like the best. I would probably now give it to Chrono Trigger. as like the best soundtrack. And then of course there's stuff like Donkey Kong Country, Super Castlevania. Like those are all ones that like really push the sound systems in really cool creative ways. Mm-hmm. But like Mega Man X is like up there. It's allowed to hang with with the big boys.
The big boys.
The big boys.
I'm gonna try so hard not to just quote that video.
I didn't think it was gonna happen right away, but I was just like, we're gonna talk about Terminal Montage.
Look, Terminal Montage is just good.
That is the fact that he did 2 like specifically Mega Man X skits that are about how good the music is in this game.
Yup.
I think that says everything.
Yeah.
Oh man. Do you have anything else to say, or should we move to gameplay?
Let's jump into gameplay.
Okay. Gameplay and a bit of like the story overview as well for those that are interested. I know I've got some of my regular viewers who have not yet played this game and are like working their way through the Mega Mans, and so I'm like this one's good and I don't want to just spoil everything for you guys. So like if you want to have that like pure experience of just experiencing this game for the first time, then like by all means like click away from this video, play through the game, and then come back to this when you're done.
Yeah, that's one of my points actually about the gameplay. This is not a long game.
It's not a long one.
As evidenced by how quickly we've gotten this episode out after.
Yeah. after the previous one.
Yeah, like that was one of the things that surprised me was how quickly we blitzed this game.
Like I said, I'd been practicing this one too, because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't want our play sessions to just be me dying over and over.
Yeah, but like I feel like even this is, I don't know if it's necessarily a criticism, just something I picked up on. The levels feel way shorter, like compared to classic.
Compared to classic. Okay.
And like it might be because we've removed the screen transition. Like they've made the equivalent of a classic Mega Man game, but then they didn't account for like the way X would just like shred through the level. And part of it too is the addition of the dash boots. Like
right.
Like, which I like the dash boots because it feels like the natural evolution of the slide from classic Mega Man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will say, in my opinion, because I haven't talked to the developers, I don't know what they were actually thinking. I don't think that it was like an accident that you get through levels quicker.
Yeah.
I definitely get the sense that like they wanted to do away with the tedium that was like the result of specifically limitations. Because like all of the good design sensibilities of classic Mega Man are here in X. Everything that was good about the classic games is here, but like you gotta admit, and this coming from someone who loves classic Mega Man dearly, there are a lot of moments where you're like, oh, this part.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those moments. And again, like you said, things like the screen having to slowly transition, slide over to the next room, which is also just a 4x4 square in size, and then you get to the next room, and then you get a slow screen transition that way. By one, opening up the world so you can move anywhere without having to wait for a camera to scroll, and also giving X the ability to move fast. You do get through the levels quicker, but in my opinion, it's kind of empowering.
It is.
Because you're tearing through levels and you're shooting through enemies super fast. And there's not nearly as many of those moments as classic Mega Man where you just go like, oh, not this. Oh. Yeah. Oh, disappearing and reappearing blocks. Oh.
No, now it's more instant death spikes.
Well, it's what you get a lot of in X is moving platforms.
Yup.
And the expectation to dash jump and make these wide jumps.
Frame perfect jump into the one.
That's later. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And that's just the one spot. Like, I much prefer, like, the dash jumping and, like, the wall jumping stuff to, like, block puzzles, like blocks reappearing and disappearing over a bed of spikes.
Yeah. I was gonna say the other addition to this from Classic, like as it, you know, the evolution from Classic is the wall jump.
Yes.
Which I think this wall jump looks really silly.
It does.
But it also takes away some of the bullcrap from Classic.
Exactly.
Like, the number of times that you were just like dancing on like a ledge and like saved yourself with a wall jump. Like I can't even begin to count them.
It's beautiful. In classic Mega Man, you would have just died.
You would have just died.
No remorse. The game would have just killed you and said it was your fault.
Well, yeah, and because that's kind of how classic Mega Man is it's brutally difficult, and it's like you need to learn through trial and error. Whereas this is like, you can probably save yourself. You'll look a little silly while doing it, but
I remember growing up trying out like people's Game Maker games and stuff, just, you know, hobbyist game designers.
Yup.
When they would include a wall jump like that in Mega Man X, I didn't grow up playing X, and so I'd say, like, that looks weird, and, like, this feels broken. Like, this is too much for a platformer. And when I'd go and see the conversation surrounding it, people would be like, oh, no, it's just like Mega Man X. I'd be like, okay.
Interesting.
But
any other notes?
Now that I've actually played Mega Man X, I see the vision. Yes, it looks extremely silly, but, I don't know, Mega Man's kind of inherently silly. And this is cool for gameplay reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a great point, because that is one of the largest changes to the gameplay loop.
Yep.
The wall jump is kind of like the first pass of something like climbing in Breath of the Wild. If you get where I'm going. Because like in previous Zelda games, there'd be like ledges, and you'd have to be like, if I want to get higher, I gotta look for a way to get higher.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Link is just a friggin' ATV, just climbing over mountainscapes and nonsense like that.
That is the best description I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, and it's that feeling is here. Like, even a game this old still kind of accomplished that same, you know, feat of design, in the sense that, like, vertical stuff is no longer a dead end.
Yup.
If you see a pillar going straight up, you're like, oh, I can use my wall jump to hop up there and see what's up there. And so it adds a lot more vertical exploration to a 2D platformer, which is something a lot of 2D platformers struggle with, is vertical exploration. Because, like, you remember the Elecman stage in Mega Man 1.
Yup.
What a nightmare it was to fall back down.
It was very memorable for being brutal. and you had to learn it. And so, like, getting to... I forget who it was in this game. Was it...
Boomer Kuwanger.
Boomer Kuwanger,
the vertical stage.
Like, he had the vertical stage. And just watching you, like, do this... And again, like, I watched gameplay videos to refresh myself for this episode. Mm-hmm. And watching this person just be like, nah, I'm just not gonna do this part. I'm just gonna skip everything.
Yeah. But the game lets you do that.
No, it does. And, like, it feels fair, because it's like, well, you gave me that power. I'm gonna abuse it.
It's, like, rather than make, like, a game that will punish you for minor mistakes, it's like, we'll just add the difficulty in different ways. And so I really appreciate that. Also, like, the game is just really generous with, like, item drops. That was something that I, like, especially noticed while we were playing it together.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, like, I'd, like, take so many hits going through the level, but enemies would just, like, keep dropping health pickups.
Yep.
And so, like, I'd have enough to get through. It became a meme.
It became a meme. Listen, just, like, taking a hit, grabbing a health pickup, like it never happened.
Like it never happened.
Like, that was
the amount
so funny.
The amount of times we said that phrase.
It was so good.
Oh, man. It's so funny. But yeah, like I was gonna say earlier, talking about some of the, like, the story integration, because this tries to go a bit more, like, how do I want to say this? With classic Mega Man, they have, like, their cutscenes in between levels and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then towards, like, some of the later games, they try and, you know, involve a bit more with, like, characters showing up and dialogue happening, and, like, a thing happens, and then you get to the next, like, fight or area or whatever. It definitely feels like a bit smoother how they're doing cutscenes in this game. You especially see it, like, right at the end of, like, the tutorial level, how they start introducing characters and concepts. But I also really like that the game, like, doesn't go like all in on storytelling. It's more of, like, a show don't tell type of storytelling, which is a style that I like. I wouldn't say it's the only way to do storytelling. Sometimes dialogue is good.
Yeah.
And there are ways that it can be effective. But for the way that this game tells its story, I like it.
Yeah. There's a little bit of, like, again, this feels like the next step where, like, you know, a lot of older games just had the story in the instruction booklet. If you didn't have the instruction booklet, I don't know why I'm shooting people, but he's taking damage. That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like, versus like, there's pieces of that story here. I just wish there was, like, a little bit more to clarify, because you had to clarify some things for me.
I did have to explain some things about the background. And it's like, I don't know how much of this was, like, in the instruction manual for the original game, because I haven't read that. There was a lot of stuff that we got because of later games that add lore context.
Yeah.
And so, like, I get that, like, the story wasn't completely there. I like the story's hands-off approach, but I do respect the fact that, like, or, like, I understand the fact that, you know, they probably could have done more with the story. I do like, though, the storytelling through gameplay.
Yeah.
Especially, like, the opening, how they set up Vile as a villain by having him kick your trash in a fight that you're not sure if you can or can't win. And then after the scripted loss, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But they let that hopelessness sit for a minute. Where it's like, you feel like you could beat him if you just shoot fast enough, but also, like, dang, this guy is tough.
Yep.
And then they show, like, oh no, he's this cocky douchebag. And then Zero rolls up and he's like, oh, hey, like, I'll protect you, X. And so it sets the expectation of, like, okay, this guy's really powerful. Zero is, like, kind of powerful, and then I'm not even as strong as Zero. So, like, I need to get stronger.
That good. I'm not that good yet.
I'm not the guy.
You're not one of the big boys yet.
Right.
If we're going into story too, I want to just highlight, like, the opening cutscene, because I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
Which, like right when you boot up the game, that little bit, and it's so interesting because this is what made it feel like it was connected to classic Mega Man.
Yeah.
Just like seeing all of X's stats. And also, like, dang, man, you got so much memory in there. Like, I barely remember breakfast this morning. Like,
You're like, my brain doesn't even have a terabyte's worth of storage.
I barely have a gig.
I wouldn't say that. Come on, you remember most of the Pokemon. Just because you're not using your storage wisely doesn't mean you don't have
it. But like seeing that, and then again, like, you know, the message from Dr. Light and how he's like, all right, this is my magnum opus. This is literally my greatest creation. But I'm worried people aren't going to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Which I like, that's such an interesting idea of like, this was his life's work. Mm-hmm. The literal last thing that he did before he died. And like, Dr. Light was already decently old in classic Mega Man. And now it's like, okay, Dr. Light is gone, but he's not totally gone.
Right, yeah.
Which I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. And it was very surprising, because again, like everyone, Aaron skips over it in Sequelitis.
Right.
And so like, I didn't know any, like I was like, wait, what is this? This is cool!
Mm-hmm. This is what you get exclusive to Tradin Faves, is the context, not just playing the game.
Yes.
It's so interesting, and like really now I don't want to bring up all this ethical drama too much because it's like really depressing, but like the fact that Dr. Light, I can see so clearly now in his character that he is worried about the advancement of artificial intelligence and how it could negatively impact humans. And in our day and age, how people are like, well, but we can make money, so let's just keep going. And it's getting worse and more dangerous. Like, oh, we need a Dr. Light in our time. Mm-hmm. We need a person like that desperately in our world. But it's, yeah. But like sidestepping that, I agree with you. Like, most people will just want to get to the game. But I love what that little intro
little intro did a lot for me, because it kind of set the stage and explained a lot of things that, again, when everyone has talked to me about this game, has ignored that little aspect of it. And I'm like, this is so cool. And especially, like, the fact that, like, it's also out of Dr. Light's hands because he's not the one who woke X up. Mm-hmm. That it was Dr. Kane?
Yeah, Dr. Kane.
Which I think is so fascinating. That, like, you know, it's like, oh no, he woke him up sooner. Mm-hmm. And, like, realized, hey, this is pretty cool. What if I mass produce... Literally what you were just talking about with, like, AI.
Literally that.
It's such an interesting conversation.
What if we mass-produce these and forced them to integrate into society without any testing?
And it like, I feel like it does something to Dr. Light as a character, because he's like, alright, it's gonna be, like, how many years did he say? Like,
he was planning 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
Until X's release, but then as circumstances had it wasn't, like, until, like, 100 or so years.
Yeah, later. like the time frame was different, and so it's like, it's out of his hands. Like, he's already gone. Mm-hmm. He can't do anything about it.
And I love that with that, X, in a way, is still kind of like a child compared to the rest of the Reploids, for the reason that, like, technology and society has progressed without him. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he's still figuring out how this new world that he's in works. Whereas everyone else was just born into this, you know, advanced civilization, and they're like, oh yeah, this is what we can expect.
It's like an iPhone 2 waking up in the world of the iPhone 10. But that iPhone 2 has, like, a potential in it that none of them have. And so it's like... I don't know, it's such an interesting idea.
It is. And I think the thing that best symbolizes all of it, a lot of games will just slap the letter X onto something to make it cool. Or social media sites, apparently. Whoa, topical! Anyway.
I don't know what you're talking about. I refuse to call it that.
People will just put the letter X onto something to make it sound cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love the significance behind them calling it Mega Man X.
That was a big moment for me when I was like, oh, I love this.
It is the fact that X is a variable. And the whole thing about Mega Man X is that he has limitless potential, both for good and for bad. And the main thing that Dr. Light wanted was for X himself to decide what he was going to do with that potential. And I'm like, man, that is awesome.
Well, and it's especially fascinating because later we would get Mega Man 7.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, you know, the whole concept of, like, the laws of robotics and how Mega Man starts to break past his programming of, like, I'm more than just a machine.
Right.
You know, and so, like, seeing that, like, X is the natural evolution of that idea.
Mm-hmm. And likely a lot of the... Like, Mega Man 7 was made after X, but you can see, like, them, like... sowing the seeds for that kind of a plot down the line, that these will become the big ethical concerns around the time that Dr. Light is designing X.
Yeah, so, like, I know we wanted to jump into the intro stage, and the intro stage is great, but I wanted to highlight that little bit at the beginning.
No, definitely.
Because it was so good!
I agree. But
then, you know, kind of after the intro stage, it just becomes a Mega Man game.
Yeah. There's a bit more, like, setup to this one.
Yeah.
The fact that there is an intro stage at all is a new concept to the series.
Now, and again, it's so fascinating how, because classic Mega Man was still ongoing, X would reverse inspire, like, classic.
Mm-hmm.
To, like, add intro stages and stuff. And so it's... Yeah. I think it's neat.
It is cool. And again, it's one of those things that, like, this could have just been a cutscene. They could have just shown, like, oh, this is X. And then it's like, oh, and there's this bad guy named Vile and my friend Zero. And then now we get to the stage select and we just pick from the 8 Mavericks of who we want to fight. But instead of doing it like that, they chose to make it a gameplay experience. And so it kind of hits different because, like, you experience the world through gameplay first and then get the story context. It's like what some of the Sonic games wanted to accomplish, but maybe just didn't do well. Arguably because the world wasn't interesting enough for it. Things like Sonic Colors.
Mm-hmm.
How they open you with gameplay first and then you get the story.
Yeah.
After beating the first level. It's that kind of concept, but, like, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
How, like, the level ends with, like, establishing all its themes. And I love that the main theme of this first game, I don't know if this is something that carries on throughout the series, but with this first game, the whole point of the plot, its entire focus, is about getting stronger. It is about finding where your weaknesses lie, upgrading yourself, and making yourself into something better. Mm-hmm. And, like, everything about the game screams that theme at you, and it's so cool that it does.
Yeah. Well, also, I'd like to tack on something that I noticed about the game and its themes, is, like, again, with X being a variable, and that, you know, it's his choices. And then just the inherent idea of the gameplay being, like, pick whichever Maverick you want to fight first.
Yeah.
You have the choice.
Yeah, and fight them how you want to fight them with the weapons that are available to you.
Uh-huh. And, you know, taking advantage of, like, the weapon weaknesses, or just going for a buster-only run. Like, there's limitless potential.
Yep. And even choosing whether or not you want to use the upgrades. Or even if you want to find most of the upgrades, the only one that's mandatory is the dash, and you can just choose not to dash while you're playing the game.
Yep.
So they give you a lot of freedom in how you want to play the game, and I think that's extremely cool.
Skip here to avoid spoilers.
Yep. So should we talk about the game itself?
Yeah. After doing this intro stage, it breaks down as you'd expect from a classic Mega Man. There are 8 villains on a screen from which you select, and you pick which one you want to fight, and then you get their weapon, and you complete until you beat them all, and then you go to like the final stages where the main villain is.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it's the same as classic, and we're going to kind of talk about these point by point in the order that we did them playing through the game. So, some people are going to notice that we didn't start with Chill Penguin, like heathens. And, like, believe me, I get it. With Chill Penguin, that's where you get the dash ability, and it makes the game way more, like, fast and exhilarating.
Mm-hmm.
But, I really wanted to showcase Flame Mammoth stage first, for the reason that I wanted to show how it changes.
Yep.
After beating Chill Penguin.
I appreciated that, because like it again showed one of the cool things about this game, that it's like, hey, your choices have consequences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
And also, like, Flame Mammoth stage specifically, I feel like it's kind of boring after you beat Chill Penguin. A lot of the obstacles are just gone.
That was one thing I noticed, is like, if you do like the correct quote unquote order, like a lot of these stages are just, there's nothing there.
Yeah. Because there are so many of them where you get the weapon that beats the boss whose stage is affected by the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, starting with Flame Mammoth then, I was actually kind of impressed with my own gameplay ability to beat it without the dash.
Yeah.
But there's some silly stuff here. This is the level that has the precise wall jump thing to get the secret, which is really funny.
Oh my goodness, that. I saw that and I was a little bit disgusted, because I was like, wow, okay, this is a Capcom game.
But again, it's not mandatory to get that power to be able to beat the game, and if you skip it, you will get it later. So it's like,
and arguably a better way,
right? I don't know. Do you have any particular thoughts about this level?
Not like that was the most standout thing, was like the block jump, the frame perfect jump,
mm-hmm.
And then just like Flame Mammoth. He sure is an elephant.
I like, more so than the stage, I do like Flame Mammoth as a boss. I love that he's got the little trumpeting with his trunk, that moves the conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And it makes that little Super Nintendo wow.
Yeah. I will say I do like the little detail of being able to cut off his trunk.
Yeah, you use the boomerang blades and just
and then it arguably makes him harder, because then his pattern gets more erratic.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
It is funny. This is one of the character designs that I do really like in the game. This Flame Mammoth. He's just a big elephant man with like a little flame gun on his hand. And he does the little jump, earthquake slam move.
Yeah.
He's a charming guy. All right, we'll move on to Chill Penguin next.
We're not gonna do him first, but we're definitely gonna get him now, because
I was like, okay, now that you've seen the level that's impacted by beating Chill Penguin stage, we're going straight to Chill Penguin.
now we're gonna. He is the bubble man of of the X universe, which it kind of gives me a fondness for him, that he's But yeah, the dash boots are cool, and this is the first time, I guess, because the order we did this, that we saw the ride armor.
Yeah, the ride armor is really cool.
I thought that was neat.
This level, I feel like it doesn't have many of the usual hangups that people have with ice levels. You're not, like, slipping on ice and whatever. Even in, like, classic Mega Man, you're doing that on the Iceman stage. Mm-hmm. It's always, like, slippery ice and, like, weather that's really getting in your way. Here, it's just, like, it's snowy. But it's a level like any other.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate that, because you get the visual appeal of an ice level, but, like, it doesn't suck.
Yeah. Well, also, I showed it, I think I sent it to you because you were sending me remixes and stuff, but
yeah,
this is one of the Mega's, like, I don't want to call it an album because it was 2 songs, but they released like a Christmas album.
And an EP.
Yeah, and they did do Chill Penguin. It was called Chill Xmas.
Right, and it was like very like Christmassy, but also like Mega Man X.
It's so like I now that we've played this game, I'm listening to that, like the lyrics, and they are so funny. Like,
it's hilarious.
Like there's even mention, he's like, hey, like, those are some pretty nice boots, but like, leave them outside, don't track in the mud. Like, and like, was the line we wait for the hologram of Santa Claus. Like, that killed me.
Because they're talking about Dr. Light.
Yeah. In their other Christmas song, they did, I think it was a cover of Blue Christmas. But like, and then they, like, Santa shows up and it's all of them talking to him about, hey, is it true that people think you look like Dr. Light? And Santa's like, yes, I have been getting your letters. The resemblance hasn't gone unnoticed by me. I love the Megas, and so like now that they're dipping their toe into like X, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I've played this game, so I'm kind of excited.
Yeah. It's fun. One of the other things, just to talk about the environment before we get to the boss. This level does take place in an area that catches my interest, in that it's an abandoned missile base.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that grabs me about that, one of the other things that we did, was we watched the little animated OVA.
Right.
That came with the PSP remake of the game.
Yup.
The little OVA called Day of Sigma. And with that, one of the things is like there's an abandoned missile base that they unload a bunch of missiles and strike the HQ.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to wonder if, like, in the context of the lore, is that where this place is?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was. That would make sense.
Especially if it's an abandoned missile base, like, it was used for this raid and then never touched again. Except for, like, Chill Penguin coming in here and making it his domain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to wonder.
Yep.
The lore has me curious. Maybe people that are, like, more adept in, like, the Mega Man X series can comment on whether or not that's true. But, like, we watched it, like, after we finished playing the game, and then I was, like, getting my notes ready and writing notes about Chill Penguin. I was like, wait a minute.
Hold up.
There's a 1-1 here. I'm wondering if I can make a 2 out of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, to actually talk about like the fight against Chill Penguin himself, I think this is a really good like tutorial boss. Again, there's a lot about the game that's just like screaming at you, like, do this guy first.
Yeah. That's the other thing too, is I've heard this posed.
Yeah.
That the wall jump was created after he was designed. Because it breaks his fight in half. Like,
you know what? I believe
penguin,
that.
Like, you just being able to jump up the wall, like, he can't do anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, that's very interesting.
Yeah, that is a good point. I will say I still think that works to the game's favor of having this be the first Maverick that you fight.
Oh, yeah.
For the reason that all of his attacks are extremely flashy.
Yup.
But they're easy to dodge and don't necessarily do a lot of damage to you. As well as the fact that his weakness is the standard X-Buster and everything.
Yeah.
So he's not hard to kill, but you learn a lot of what to expect from bosses in the game by fighting him first.
Yup.
And, like, I remember going through that, playing through this for the first time, and, like, learning everything that I needed to learn by doing this stage first. And so that left me, like, more confident and ready to take on the other enemies.
Yeah.
So, I like that. Also, like, I don't know if we saw it while I was playing, but if you use the fire weapon, Flame Mammoth's weapon, there's like a cool little like sprite animation of him like catching fire and being oh!
That's one thing that I like that like became more standard in like Mega Man games is that like when it is a weakness, there's a visual indicator that like, no, yeah, this is doing something.
This is the thing that hurts them. As we'll get to with later bosses, though, sometimes it's a little too abusable. But yeah, from there we went to Storm Eagle's stage.
Oh, the music!
This stage rules.
Yes, this was I know because you sent the remix to me, but like, if you remember old YouTube, good old
ancient days.
This might be a shout out to somebody who is not more popular than us. I don't know, hard to say. But back in the day, Super Doodle Man did that video just titled "The Adventure." I think it was The Adventure, right?
I think it actually was just Adventure.
Adventure?
Yeah.
Because it was a playthrough of Super Smash Bros. Melee's Adventure Mode, but like it was a tool assisted speedrun.
Yeah.
And just, him just breaking this game in half while he just plays like the sickest music, and like this was one of the tracks was like a remix of Storm Eagle.
Yeah.
And I was just like, dang, this is good. And so it was cool for me because I recognized that song. I could kind of like hum along as you were playing.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, I know this song.
Oh yeah. That video was also fun for the reason that it was a task that was not just meant to play the level quickly, but it was to play stylishly.
Yes.
And like wow everyone with a bunch of cool stuff that at the time people were not able to do.
Yeah, for the time that video came out, it was like mind-breaking.
And now people are just regularly doing that in tournaments. Yeah. Which is pretty crazy. But to get back to this, yeah, like that particular remix of Storm Eagle's theme I'm very fond of for those memories. But like there's a lot of good remixes of Storm Eagle's theme.
Yeah, well this is the other one too that the Megas did. Was I can't remember the name of it, but like they did that fairly recently, I feel like.
Oh yeah, they called it like Rogamer Storm.
Yup, that was it.
Because it was named after the battleship from the game Death Rogamer.
That's right. I again, the Megas crack me up with their dialogue that they write. It's like, look in the sky, it's a bird, no, it's a plane. No, wait, it's a bird piloting a plane.
Genius lyrics.
I know, it's so funny. But like, this one, once again, also, Terminal Montage made an entire video just about how good this song is.
Practically a music video.
Yes.
If we're being honest. It's a noteworthy track in a game that has a lot of good tracks.
But like having the level be an airport, and then you like go up into the air, like up onto his airplane and fight him, like, oh, it's cool.
It's really cool. I will say, and you can probably agree to this in some capacity, but I get pretty scared of heights in real life. Just yep. You know, it's like it's really nerve-wracking, like the possibility of falling and everything, especially if it's like hiking or whatever, and you're like on a dusty mountain trail where you feel like you could slip. That stuff does scare me, but in video games where I'm not in, you know, obvious physical danger, and I'm able to just play a video game, there's something really exhilarating about being like super high in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
I love levels in video games where you're way high up in the sky. And so the fact that like this level does that very like precarious climb, again, taking advantage of the wall jump ability so you can rise vertically. It's a cool level, man.
Mm-hmm. Even just like having like those like canister things that you can explode to get stuff, like,
right.
It's just neat stuff in this. Is this also? I can't remember if it was the health upgrade or the where you get the helmet. But this has, like, the glass that you shatter.
Yeah, that one is for...
I think it was the health upgrade.
I think there's all three. It was for a sub-tank, because the health upgrade was at the very beginning, how you get to that high platform and then jump back to the start of the level.
Mm-hmm. Nope, that's right.
But it's, yeah, to get a sub-tank, there's that area where you go inside a building, and then when you destroy the enemy, like, all the glass shatters on the window.
Yep.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's so cool.
And then just in general with the boss stage, how instead of going into a room like you do with the other bosses, how it's... You see like the little boss door thing, but then you go onto the airship and take off into the sky.
Like break apart like the top of it and it makes the arena.
Uh-huh. And just like blowing up the airship to create an arena is such cool environmental storytelling.
Yup.
And then, of course, the actual fight against Storm Eagle, the fact that he's using wind to try and push you off and instant kill you.
Good thing we did Chill Penguin first.
Seriously.
They kind of expect, like, you need the dash boots or this guy will obliterate you.
Well, the main thing is, like, it's easy to avoid if you have the dash. If you don't, the thing is... You can still resist the wind as long as you have enough space to move, but he will try and corner you.
Yeah.
And then even with the dash, if he catches you near the end, like the edge, and then he uses his wind pushing attack, like, he can get you.
Yep. Also, I just love his weapon that you get for beating him.
Yeah.
Like, it's
tornado.
It's just cool, just being like... Here's this, like, giant screen-wide just gust of wind that you could just shoot.
Yep. I apologize that I didn't show off more of, like, the... When you get the Buster upgrade and you can charge all
it's
the
okay,
abilities,
I looked them up, and they're...
Okay.
His is sick.
It's really sick how you just create the big, like, column tornado.
Yep. Which, like, it's cool because the standard shot is, like, horizontal, while, like, the charge is vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just neat.
It's a good one. We already talked about it, but at the end of my notes, I just put music and then a little smiley face.
Yup. It's good.
It's really good. And then on my notes for this next one, I put music in all caps. Music!
Yup.
Because next we got Spark Mandrill, which was the other terminal montage one where he's just talking about the music.
Literally taking a break to be like, yo, this song is good.
It's so funny how he's running through the level, and then he just kind of starts instinctively, like, bopping his head. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Good visual joke.
This might be the One Piece brain rot for me,
yeah.
But, like, Spark Mandrill, I just think of the human drills.
Yeah.
From that one arc that I'm like, yep. That's what that animal is.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I kind of forget most of his stage. Because, like, when we when we did it, the power is out.
Right.
So it's just kind of a lot of, like, the screen flashes, and it's like, okay, remember where this jump is. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of it.
Yeah. I like how right off the bat, since we did do Storm Eagle first, you see the remains of the Death Rogamer, like, lying in a scrap heap around the starting area to imply, like, hey, this is where the ship crashed.
It's sick.
It's really cool. I will say, to talk about, like, a bit about my own opinion about it, I think the level's got some pretty cool enemies. Maybe the environments aren't always as interesting. There's lots of, like, weaving up and down through ladders and stuff.
Yeah.
But enemies like the little fireflies that dash across the dark room and kind of light up the way.
Yep.
Those look really cool. And they got, like, the... what are they? Like, the emus with the little, like, saw blades on their heads, and they, like, flip and, like, throw the saws at you. Those are also pretty cool enemies.
Yeah.
For Spark Mandrill, I love the intro to the fight. How the room gets dark, and then you see, like, the little lights blinking.
Yup.
And then it reveals that it's him. I'm like, oh, that's good.
Yup. Man has presence.
Mandrill has presence. Yeah. Spark Mandrill, very tough enemy.
Unless you have his weakness.
Instantly beaten by Shotgun Ice because he freezes, and then after he freezes, he breaks out and does a little, like, hey! Animation, in which point you can shoot him again and freeze him.
Yup. Very easy to combo.
It's like, I'm telling you, before I knew that his weakness was Chill Penguin's weapon on my first run of the game, I died a lot to this boss.
Yep.
But then it was kind of, like, I remember this time, like, I was just shooting at him a little bit, and then I was like, oh, I'm losing. Here, let me get out the shotgun ice.
Yep.
Another fun level.
Yeah.
And speaking of fun levels, we've got what I would argue is, like, maybe the goofiest stage in the game.
I think I actually really like this level a lot. Armored Armadillo.
Yeah,
like,
Armored Armadillo. I like it too, but there's just a lot about it that's silly.
Like, for me, it has a lot of great set pieces.
It does.
Like of all the levels, this was one of the most memorable levels for me. Because, like, you have the big spiky mine carts that, like, you ride through on with all the bats. There's that robot crusher thing that's, like, carving its way through.
Yeah, and the fact that you have to destroy it before it destroys terrain and cuts off your ability to get items.
And then also, this is where you get the biggest "if you know, you know" secret, which is the Dr. Light.
The first part of that secret is the fact that they have the retro one-up bat thing. Yes!
That made me so happy that I was like, what if Dr. Wily's designs managed to persist?
Yeah, because, like, the normal bat enemies that are in this level are just kind of like these little, like, cylinders with, like, chompy fangs.
I don't care for their design, but, like, seeing the old design and how, like, it juxtaposes them, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I love this.
It's because of the plain way that the normal bat enemies look. You see the bat from classic Mega Man, and you're like, oh, it's that guy!
It really stands out.
He has, like, a near consistent, like, a 95% drop rate of, like, one-ups if you kill him.
So you
then you can just reload him off screen and then come back and shoot him again. You can max out your lives.
Yeah, and that's how you're supposed to get the lives to get the secret.
The if you know secret.
Yeah, well, because, like, you have to, like, get up to that platform and then die 5 times.
I think in addition to getting up to that, you could also beat the level and then go all the way back through.
But, like, why would you do that?
Why would you do it? You could just die and then restart from there.
Yeah. Dr. Light dressed as Ryu is one of my favorite things I didn't know I needed.
If you get up there, you find Dr. Light showing off his favorite Street Fighter cosplay.
My favorite thing is, like, I think I told you about it. There's, like, that mobile game, and they added Dr. Light as Ryu to that game that you could play as, and like he shoots Hadokens and everything.
It's like, so goofy.
It's so funny, but I love it. I love it because also like it gives me this image of like, you know, old man Dr. Light playing Street Fighter. And I'm
it's one of those. I can envision him like he bought Street Fighter for rock and roll, just like, oh, something to keep the kids entertained, and they're like, play with us, and he like gets really into Street Fighter.
Yeah. There's also I can't remember who the artist was, and it's killing me. There's this comic I found of like of like classic Mega Man, and like Dr. Light is like, Wily, like, let's stop putting our children in danger. You and me one-on-one. And Wily's like, oh, okay, like, if that's how you want to do it. And suddenly, like, Dr. Light, like, rolls up his sleeve, and he's, like, absolutely, like, shredded.
Oh, my
as he's, like, JoJo, like, walking towards Dr. Wily.
It's perfect.
And I loved it. Like this is the silliest thing Capcom has put in this game, and I'm here for it because it gives Dr. Light so much more personality.
Yep. And the fact that it gives you the Hadoken,
which is like an instant
ability.
Kill.
it instant kills most enemies in the game. Which is just a thing of beauty. Also the fact you remember how I couldn't pull it off.
Yeah.
In my controller settings on my totally legitimate Super Nintendo that we played this on, I had diagonal inputs disabled for some reason. And so in order to do the Hadoken move, you have to actually input a quarter circle shoot.
Yep.
Like you would in Street Fighter. And so because I had those disabled...
That's hilarious.
I was wondering, because I was like, I'm doing the input fast enough. Like, I'm not great at Street Fighter, but I know how to do a quarter circle punch. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world. And I just wasn't getting it. It's because I had, like, diagonal inputs on the D-pad disabled for some not good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is a great secret.
It's such a good Easter egg. I love it. And then we get to the boss, Armored Armadillo, or just Dillo if you use Spark Mandrill's weapon on him.
You take away the armor, he just becomes Armadillo.
like I think I made the joke about like in SpongeBob, just Patrick. My name's not Rick.
It's like when you go back to rematch him on his stage, it does the intro and it's just like da 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 da, and it just says Dillo.
I love it. It was a great level.
Yeah, the fact like he's also like a boss that's pretty tough. But when you use the spark ability and knock off his armor and it makes him a more manageable boss fight, I think that's really cool.
Yep, I think that's neat. I like that a lot.
Launch Octopus up next.
Launch Octopus.
This one, it's a fun stage. I'd say maybe it goes on a bit too long compared to other levels, which is mostly just because of the mini bosses.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's that one mini boss that like it pushes and pulls you like over that pit of spikes. And I'm like, that's mean.
It's so mean.
They're like, oh hey, you have the wall jump. You should be fine.
Like,
this is balanced.
Yeah, you can wall jump on these little edges as long as you're moving in the right direction.
I know. And the fact that he like so quickly changes direction. This boss fight. this little mini boss, I was like, this is mean.
This little mini boss is worse than anything else. It's just so dang mean. I will say the thing that kind of makes up for it, though, this is kind of similar to, as I was saying about Chill Penguin, a lot of the hang-ups that people have about water levels in video games, none of that here.
Yup.
You don't get slowed down by the water at all. Most of your weapons, except for your fire weapon, which is understandable, but most of your weapons still work perfectly fine underwater. In fact, the only thing that really changes about being underwater is your jump height. You still move the same speed and stuff, but you can jump higher underwater. And so it kind of makes you stronger underwater.
Yup.
Which is one of those neat little things. Even classic Mega Man was kind of like that. But most of the underwater levels are okay, you're underwater. Now let's put a bunch of spikes everywhere.
Yup.
Whereas this one, they kind of just let you traverse the bottom of the sea.
Yup.
And just you can dash jump from really high places and skip huge chunks of level, which is probably why the really difficult mini bosses are here.
Yep.
But
it's interesting because there's a lot of just instant death in this level.
There is, yeah.
Because also there was was it for a health upgrade or a sub tank?
It was for a health upgrade.
Yeah, there's that secret area you go to, and there's that mini boss that pulls you up where you can't see where the floor is, and I think it was later we figured out it's if you just land where those pillars in the background are, you should be safe. But
you pointed that out to me, and I was so miffed.
I know.
I should have known.
Well, because I watched it when you went up, because you died twice. And I was I want to see if there's a tell. Because this seems really mean to just kind of have you a blind jump down there on this boss that you ride up away.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then as far as the actual boss,
Launch Octopus. He's kind of a nothing boss for me, but I like his weapon.
Mm-hmm. I feel the pattern is kind of fun when you use the Mega Buster.
Yeah.
Apparently he's weak to his own weapon.
Huh.
But then you have to find the certain windows where you're gonna hit him and not hit the stuff he's shooting at you, and so it's kind of I'll just use the Buster.
Well, and the thing too is when he's doing his spin move, you can't damage him, but that's just time to charge so I can do more damage. When he is able to be hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of this this little dance that you do with him.
Yeah, you run away when he's doing his little whirlpool move, and then when he goes and he starts unloading, then I like to just button mash and just try and shoot him as fast as I can. And it's kind of the same rush you get from those Mario Party mini games, just try and mash as quick as you can.
Yep.
It's and of course, just, because I'm me, I'm really fond of the octopus.
Yep.
I love these dear octopodes so much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hey, there's one that's a bad guy. Cool. It's not my least favorite level or anything, but it has some choices in its design that I'm I don't completely hate them, but I'm also not oh, this is my favorite. It's just kind of okay, he's here too.
Yep.
I do like the little secret about how you destroy that boat to break through the ground and go in that little underwater tunnel. That was kind of neat. Next up, Boomer Kowanger.
The award for stupidest boss name goes to... Listen, some of these are cool, Storm Eagle, Flame Mammoth, Armored Armadillo, they sound cool. Boomer Kowanger sounds so stupid.
It doesn't sound like a real thing.
No, it sounds like somebody was shoot, I need to just put something here.
Right.
It feels like a placeholder.
Part of the difficulty, because it's harder to identify what creature this is supposed to be based on. It's based on a Kuwagata beetle.
Yep.
Which is a thing in Japan and not America.
Yeah. But so, instead of, what the actual animal was, they called it a Kowanger.
Right, because they took Kuwagata and combined it with,
Boomerang. and they shortened it to Boomer, which, yes, time has made that even funnier.
Okay, Boomer.
But
man.
the music in this level is good.
Yeah, the music slaps.
I know we mentioned
another
it.
one. Oh, sorry.
Do you remember? I was just gonna say, do you remember Elecman's vertical stage?
Yeah. This is what I was getting at.
His stage is vertical.
It's here's the thing. My feelings about this. Elecman's stage in the OG Mega Man feels like that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where Bruce has to get out of the pit with the rope tied to him. That's what Elecman's stage feels like, because in that first Mega Man game especially, they hadn't designed the physics and the control just right, so gravity is so oppressive.
Yup.
And it doesn't feel as good to platform in that one as it does in all the others. So
Yup.
It reminds me of that scene.
That's so funny.
At least the Elecman's got good music. But again, here, as we said, the wall jump just eliminates all of that hassle.
There's no... I don't want to say there's no challenge, but
No, because there's still the enemies that have the shields and the spike balls.
Yep.
There's tricky enemies to navigate around, but it feels like a fair challenge now, as opposed to you make one mistake and you're back at the start and you're like, oh.
But yeah, as far as Boomer Kuwanger, the other thing too is his animation's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And maybe that was Discord eating some of the frames.
Yeah.
But he kind of just teleports all over and then he dies.
Well, it's... Yeah.
I don't know.
Because he teleports around. Weirdly enough, he experiences a lot of knockback even from weapons that he's not weak to.
Uh-huh.
So there's kind of this pattern of him charging at you, but then you push him back with your weapon, and then he teleports to you to try and negate that. But I mean, a beetle that can boomerang throw its pincers and can teleport just sounds like something that exists in Australia.
Oh yeah.
Because they have all the nightmare creatures there.
It's just like an Australian beetle. It literally comes with a boomerang.
Except it's a Kuwagata, so it's from Japan. What does... No, I mean, jokes aside, the thing about all of his different abilities and everything, these ideas feel maybe the most disconnected out of all the Mavericks, where it's just oh, we wanted to give a bad guy this ability. But, teleporting is not necessarily a very Beetle thing to do. Maybe there's some Japanese folklore that I'm overlooking. I don't know.
There's some species of beetle that can teleport.
Maybe. I will say a section that I think is kind of cool is that elevator section where there's the spikes coming down on you from different areas, and then the little flying guys that try and bum rush you while you're dodging the spikes. And even the fact that sometimes getting hit by the guys can give you the iframes needed to get past spikes. Which I didn't even bring that up. That's another thing that they improved over classic Mega Man. While you have iframes, insta-kill spikes don't damage you. Thank goodness for that.
Yes.
I'm this is a welcome change. All Mega Man games must have this from now on.
Yes. We're not that mean. But yeah, and that was our entire first session of playing.
Yeah. Everything else we did in the second session.
Which, that was a lot, dude.
That was wild.
To throw at me in one session.
Mm-hmm. One, it's kind of, like you said, it's not necessarily that the stages are designed to be shorter than classic Mega Man. There's just a lot less slowing you down.
Yup.
And so, like...
The training weights are off.
I was just plowing through the levels. And then we just reach a point where, like, okay, it's late. Like, let's stop.
We probably could have beaten it that night.
I think there was some other stuff that was, like, stopping us from playing that.
Yeah,
if we had just gotten to the game sooner. But yeah.
So from there, we got good old Sting Chameleon.
Sting Chameleon.
This is, once again, I wanna bring this back. Dr. Light, what did you do to Otto? Like, it's neat that they acknowledged his existence, unlike all of the other classic games. But, like, it's also sad.
Okay, so I know what you're talking about. We'll provide some context here. So in order to get the upgrade for this level, there's like a hidden area that you take a higher path by wall jumping to get to. Where before you can get the upgrade, you have to fight this robot who, in terms of character design and the look of his body, he looks very similar to Otto from the classic games.
Yup.
And so there's a bit of, like, fan speculation that, like, because you have to fight this thing in order to get the armor piece.
Mm-hmm.
It is a mandatory step. And so people are wondering if, like, if this was an intentionally designed thing by Dr. Light to create, like, a guard robot for the piece that you have to destroy to get, but it's like, it's Otto.
He's like the shop guy.
Right. But also, like, it's just that his body kind of looks like Otto's body.
Yeah.
The head is completely different. I did some sleuthing about that, and I have more context in regards to this.
I would like some context, please.
A reminder, our little history lesson here. Mega Man 7 came after Mega Man X, and Mega Man 7 was the debut to Otto as a character.
Interesting.
So this robot's appearance predates anything relating to Otto in the classic games. So this was designed first before then. So likely when they were designing this game, they just thought,
let's put a robot here.
Let's put a robot here that you have to fight in order to get the power-up, just so it's an interesting new challenge. I can't speak for the developers, but I assume that was the design on purpose.
But then...
the history behind Otto's design...
Yeah.
Again, it's not a direct answer, but this kind of sheds some light and makes me come to some conclusions. Our beloved Keiji Inafune, who is like the character designer for a lot of those classic Mega Mans, he said in an interview that he kind of felt like he was running on fumes when he designed Otto. And it was just like, okay, so we want a comic relief character, so that way we can add some more fun elements to Mega Man without making Mega Man himself sillier. And so we'll create this other, like, gag character who runs a shop or something. But the fact that, like, that was at least what I read from maybe it was the way they translated what he said or whatever, but, like, the fact that he was saying he was running on fumes, like, he didn't, like, put a ton of thought into designing this. Maybe he like designed this first robot, and then as he designed Otto, he forgot that he had used that idea that he had.
or even just like, I'll just put this, the face doesn't look silly enough, I'll just give him a goofy looking face. But again, it's almost funnier now, because like we retroactively made this boss more upsetting.
Right. By wondering if it was a repurposed Otto.
It's so... Oh, man. What is this, Dr. Light?
Explain it to me. We need like our Hyrule Historia for the Mega Man series where they fill in the gaps.
Please.
But I also get that like you kind of don't want to fill in the gaps because then you can continue to make classic Mega Man games and X games without the lore conflicting. So like I get that.
I will say though, after you beat him, the armor upgrade is super nifty.
Oh,
like,
it's so nice.
It's so helpful. Like, the helmet, I feel, is, like, one of the least helpful upgrades in that it only has a few specific niche uses.
Yeah.
But, like, this is one of that's like, okay, this changes the whole game because now enemies do less damage to you.
Right. And again, coupled with, like we were saying, how the enemy design, they're very generous with, like, health pickups.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to tank a lot more and get through levels without necessarily having to be like a super Mega Man pro.
A super fighting everything. Robot.
Yeah. Well, to talk about the actual design of Sting Chameleon stage now that we've gotten that out of the way.
Sorry, that was like one of the biggest.
It's an interesting mystery. It's something I would never have thought of, but like I saw fan theories bringing it up, and I was like, "Wait a minute."
Mm-hmm.
It's also equally as funny to think that if that's not Otto, then Dr. Light just like built that robot and was just
had it.
Let's just use some of the parts laying around. Like, oh, these are some of Otto's schematics. I'll use these. That's also funny.
It's really funny.
Yeah. Okay, but to actually talk about Sting Chameleon, it's nature themed, and I think that's really cool. I like the little Mets with the bush helmets.
Yup. Also, the ride armor. Like, this is the more prominent part where you actually get to...
Yeah.
You get to play with the ride armor.
Yeah, you get to see how it interacts with water as well. How there's like the kind of like murky pools of water that your like machine like kind of sinks into and it makes you slower. And so it sort of becomes a gamble then, like you have to keep jumping to stay out of the water. But then that like limits your movements in not like obnoxious ways, but like interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sting Chameleon himself, I think he's pretty neat. Maybe a little frustrating at times.
Yeah.
But he's not that bad if you have the boomerang weapon.
Yeah. With the boomerang, if you hit it just right, you can kind of just trap him in a loop of taking damage.
Because otherwise, like, you have to wait for him to turn invisible, reappear somewhere else. He fires like the spread shot attacks.
Oh,
it's like, oh, come on.
Also, just a side thing. I think because this had the ride armor, this is where I made my joke. I was like, do you think X is forklift certified? Like, I forgot about that.
Yeah. We made a lot of silly little observations during this playthrough.
Because this was our second session, and I went in with, like, a very silly energy.
That's right. As we move on to the stuff that's, like, post fighting all the Mavericks, there's a lot of silliness.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that energy, because it made it more fun.
It made it way fun. The silliness, I think, brought a lot of life for me into like this playthrough.
Yeah. So I will say now, moving on past Sting Chameleon. Well, let me say this: his weapon is really cool.
Oh yeah,
I like the spread shot.
Again, also because the way the Buster charges.
Oh yeah, with the upgrade.
Because again, I watched like just somebody play through the game very quickly. Just to like review stuff. I just kind of skimmed their playthrough. They took advantage of Sting Chameleon's charged weapon to just skip entire chunks of the levels.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to fight these. Bye.
Oh, it's goofy. And you saw me do that a few times during the last few levels in the game, because I was like, you don't even have the credentials to bother me right now. You are not
go back and get a
enough.
doctorate and then come back.
You're not important enough to be worth my time. Yeah, so I will put one last, like, spoiler warning here, because this is after you beat the not the Robot Masters, sorry.
I keep doing the same thing where I want to call them
the Mavericks.
The Mavericks.
So, if you have not played Mega Man X and you have been listening to a lot of this, there's actually, like, some storyline here for as much plot as this game has, as well as just, like, the final bits of challenges and everything. So, like, if you want to try this game for yourself, I would encourage maybe this place being the place that you stop listening. And even more specifically, I'll say, like, rather than just click out of the video, you can use the timestamps. It'll list the point when spoilers are over. And you can listen to, like, what we're planning on playing next time.
Skip here to avoid spoilers.
But for the rest of us, let's go ahead and talk about our end game, the Sigma stages.
Can I just talk about Sigma's mildly just miffed expression? Like,
his portrait, and he's just like, yeah.
I'll get into it more when we actually, like, get to Sigma himself, but, like,
right.
This guy, just, like,
this guy.
What did I say? It was, like, the expression is, like, he, like, stepped outside and, like, a bird took a dump in his, like, morning coffee. He's just like, oh, man.
Like, this too now? Okay.
like, it's so just, like, non-threatening and just, like, I don't know. I can't put it into words, but, like,
yeah.
I can't take him seriously. And he is a villain that, like, wants you to take him seriously.
Right. The game is going for this darker, more mature tone compared to the classic games. And, like, this antagonist just kind of doesn't cut it for me.
No, he doesn't.
I've seen, like, I know that, like, all kinds of, like, things that happen in later games, there's, like, these giant mechas and everything controlled by Sigma or whatever, but like, just like having this be my first Mega Man X game and just seeing him as a villain, he's not as cool as Wily.
No, he's not. Well, again, I'll talk about him more when we get to actually him.
Right.
But we don't get to him for a bit because we've got a couple of stages to do.
Yeah. We've got our opening level. We get a nice, like, cutscene with Zero again coming back and being like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Like, we found their HQ. We're gonna go and infiltrate. I will take the most direct route, like, guns blazing. I'll do the difficult stuff. You work your way around and then back me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And I do like that they sort of show this in the environment. You see the city in the background in that first shot, and then you're making your way up into the mountains, and then you work your way into the base, and then it goes all machinery once you get inside. That's some cool, like, visual, like, showing, like, the progression.
I also, because we talked about this when we were actually playing about, like, X and Zero. Because, like, you know, it's the Mario and Luigi thing where, like, you know, or even the Sonic and Tails thing where, like, people joke about, like, oh, they hate each other. You know, and, like, they're mean to each other. But then, like,
yeah,
there's, like, a brotherly bond there that I'm like, oh, I like that. I live for that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I also like to... Not to, like, constantly be going back to this, but it's just a relevant example that's on my mind. In the Day of Sigma animation, that was another one where, like, you see it. You can tell that Zero and X, like, really care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that dynamic. There's not enough, like,
healthy
relationship between dudes.
Yep.
in my media. It's always got to be like, oh, they're gruff and they're manly and they're competing to see who's the best, or like they have this dysfunctional relationship. It's like, no, like Zero just very much feels like a concerned older brother for X.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, I like that.
Yes. You're so small.
You're so small. No, he's not coming, guys. Yeah, you stay here. If you have to create beef between those two, Terminal Montage did do it best.
Yes, absolutely. But, like, so it was really nice, and, like, again, it's one thing to, like, make Zero look cool, like, in the intro stage, but, like, he stays cool and relevant all throughout this first intro stage.
It gives you the sense that, like, while taking care of the rogue Mavericks was X's responsibility, you get the sense that Zero was up to something that was equally as critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, that's neat. They feel like a team.
Yes. Absolutely. Unfortunately, Zero did send you through one of the worst ways possible, because there's that... the platforms over the bottomless pit.
The floating platforms.
That is diabolical.
It's, again... It's not worse than anything that's in classic Mega Man.
No.
The fact that you get the wall jump...
It helps.
The fact that you have all the different weapons that you got from playing the other levels. Like, you have ways to get through. It's not impossible.
You have tools.
But, like, you saw me struggle.
Yeah, like, that segment, I was like, oh my goodness. Are we okay? I think I'd rather take Zero's route. I think we stand a better chance of surviving if we just go with him.
And then you actually see the route that Zero takes, and you're like, oh.
It's somehow, like, jumps that are even worse.
Yeah, there's, like, spikes everywhere.
He has to jump across platforms with spikes on them.
Yeah. So he has to touch the part of the platform that doesn't have the spike on it. Anyway.
Oh, man.
But yeah, it's a precarious little level.
Yeah.
And it's also the reason why I say that it mostly doesn't have the frustrating sections that classic Mega Man does, because this one's kind of like...
This is the one.
This one part of the game is like, okay, this will test your patience a little.
But also, I love, like, when we get to the boss room, like, I love that you can hear Zero and Vile fighting.
Yeah.
Just,
it's
like...
so cool.
Like, all it is just a couple of sound effects. But it leaves a lot to the imagination. And, like, we already know how cool Zero is, so we're like, oh, this is a cool fight.
It lets you use your imagination so they don't have to bother animating anything.
This is like, okay, this is a weird thing to reference.
Uh-oh.
So in the Adventure Zone, there's like a whole segment where like they go to this area.
D&D podcast.
Yeah.
Not in the know.
Sorry. Yeah, D&D podcast. McElroy Brothers. And, like, they bring a bunch of NPCs with them on the mission to do a bunch of cool stuff. And then Griffin, the DM, like, kind of separates them from the NPCs. And, like, you know, it's like, hey, we'll meet up over here or whatever. And then, like, he's like, oh, and you can, like, hear on the other side, like, there's a bunch of cool stuff going on. Like, there's some, like, flips and stuff. And, like... like, hyping up these NPCs that literally are contributing nothing to the adventure. But,
you
like...
can hear flips.
Like, it's been so long since I need to re-listen to the Adventure Zone. But, like... And I just remember it was so funny how he's like, alright, because this is, like, the elite unit. And so, like, they gotta do cool stuff, but also this is a D&D game, and we need the players to be cool.
Yeah.
And so, like, we can't take the cool stuff away from the players.
Yeah.
And so just him being like, yeah, like, they're fighting a giant robot, and, like, it's really cool. You trust me.
I love that.
And so, like, this kind of gives, like, the same vibe of, like, no, like, trust me, there's a really cool fight going on over here.
Yeah.
But, we do get to actually see some of the cool fight once we get in there. Because Zero got caught.
Yep. It's Vile and his stupid cheating right armor.
Dude, this was because I went and I rewatched that video, like that other person play, and they're like, hey, so this right armor cheats. The Hadoken does not kill it, it just pushes it back. And so they're like, so I like to play a game of how long can I keep him at bay. And they sped up the footage because it lasted like 5 minutes before they got bored.
Oh, that's funny.
And, like, it's so funny that we're like, yeah, no, Vile straight up cheats.
Okay.
He has literal plot armor.
That's what it is. Oh, man, that's funny. I was gonna say, he's like the guy, like, he can still, hold his own in a fight normally, but he's like, oh, my dad gave me this mech suit, and it's so much better than anything.
My daddy Sigma.
He didn't have to, like, learn any discipline or anything. He was just given this cheating armor that lets him beat everything. But anyway.
But yeah, so you can't win that fight. That was a surprising thing to me, that like this late into the game there's another scripted fight against Vile. And I was like, oh man, like this looks tough, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, because you can't win.
Yeah.
And then Zero has to Chaozu his opponent.
Chaozu. I like using that as a verb. Yeah. So Zero does a kamikaze attack, sacrificing himself and this right armor that Vile has, leaving you and Vile to finish off the fight.
How do we beat plot armor? With self-sacrificing.
With a grand heroic gesture.
Yup. I like to, because you do take all that damage from Vile, and then it's implied that like Zero in his sacrifice also gave you all of his energy. So it's like, oh,
there is sort of a debate as to like what actually happens there, whether it's X's own latent energy that he just hadn't accessed yet because he didn't know how to reach it, that he like finds in that moment, or
sub-tanks.
Right, or whether it's actually Zero's energy going to X. I
kind of prefer it being Zero, because again, it makes him even more important. Like, this couldn't have been done without him. It still couldn't have, because he blows up the ride armor, but also he gives X that last little push.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to, like, Zero as a character, of, like, how selfless he is.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, we just straight up get our grudge match with Vile.
Now we fight him.
This fight is kind of cool, in my opinion, because it's sort of like the way that he dashes, like, straight at you on the ground and then sort of flies above you. He kind of, like, moves in a circular pattern.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of, like, getting hits in when you can, and then, like, jumping over him when he charges you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty cool.
Yep.
He is the one boss that, again, I couldn't pull it off this time, but normally when I have the Hadoken, he's the one guy that I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna take you down in one hit. Like, all that build up, all that pomp and circumstance, just boom, you're
that's
gone.
The equivalent of just master balling the legendary Pokemon.
That's exactly what it is.
But yeah, and then Zero, I would feel more emotional over his death if I didn't know that he'd come back in future games.
Yeah. It's the Shadow the Hedgehog effect.
It is, because like this was made with the intent of like, oh, we're so sorry, like this could just be a one and done thing, so we're gonna give him a big dramatic sacrifice. And then by the sound of it, they bring him back multiple times to kill him off again. Like, we'll rebuild you so we can kill you again.
Right.
Because we know people like you.
This is another thing that, like, having more context about, like, the development team's intentions kind of explains some things about this. So, like, the thing about it, most of, like, the characters in the X series had, like, a new character designer for. But, of course, Mr. Inafune, who was, like, our character designer for the classic games, he created Zero.
Yes.
And Zero was, like, his baby, his, like, favorite thing that he made.
Yeah.
And so because of that, the rest of the team, there was a bit of pushback, and they're like, well, this is a Mega Man game, and he's, like, Proto Man. We need a Mega Man counterpart to be our main character. And so, since he was just a character designer, the rest of the team sort of vote one out. And I could be wrong on some of these details, but I believe this is how it happened.
Yeah, well, because I wanna say that, like, Zero was his first design for our protagonist.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, can we make something that looks a little more like Mega Man?
Right.
You know, to like have that similarity.
Yeah, that's what it was. And so because of that, we ended up getting X, and then Zero is the side character, and we're like, oh man, it'd be, like, really cool and heroic if he has this big sacrifice. And then there's, you know, Mr. Inafune grumbling in the corner, like, but this is my character, man.
This is my golden boy.
And so it sort of led to this compromise of, like, well, like, they're not humans, like...
We'll rebuild them.
You could rebuild. And this is something, like, again, I haven't seen much of the other games. I do know that the plot of the second game revolves around the bad guys wanting to reconstruct Zero so they can use him.
Mm-hmm.
And X trying to, like, assemble him first. So, like, it goes in interesting places. It doesn't have the immediate cheapness of Shadow the Hedgehog and, like, the, oh man, his heroic sacrifice and that really sad ending at the end of Sonic Adventure 2. And then instantly in the marketing, just like, oh yeah, Shadow's back in Sonic Heroes.
Look, this character is so popular, we can't let him stay dead.
And, like, when you actually do play the game, they have the cutscenes that starts expanding on the mystery of Shadow's backstory and everything. But it's like, just seeing him in the trailers, just like, yeah, he's playable too. It was kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
I think even before a trailer, I remembered seeing, like, a gaming magazine or something, and that was the first time that I saw Sonic Heroes, and I was like, why is Shadow here? He died!
Didn't you die?
My death was greatly exaggerated.
I do love, though, that if you don't have the arm cannon, that Zero gives you his arm cannon.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool if you go and you do the stupid jump and get it early because it makes the game so much easier.
Yeah.
But, like, it's so much better if you get it from him.
Mm-hmm. The fact that, like, his final thing to pass on to you is the Z Buster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like, this major upgrade. It's extremely cool thematically.
Yup.
And, like, as much as, like, knowing what happens to Zero in the later games, and even that there's a Mega Man Zero series, all of that stuff, like, I try and set that aside and just take this game for, like, what it was at the time that it came out. And it's like, okay, this is a really cool scene, and this is a really cool way of exploring the theming of getting stronger, because, like, getting help from the people that care about you is also a way for you to get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I try and keep that in mind so it doesn't completely, like, cheapen the ending.
Yeah. It's one of those, as a standalone thing, this rules. Like, it's done beautifully. Knowing that this is interwoven into a much larger franchise kind of softens the emotional impact that it has.
Yeah, I agree.
As well as another thing that's kind of weird about this, after this fight, the level just keeps going.
Yeah.
And we just fight Boomer Kowanger.
That's
just
right.
like, hi, why are you here?
The fact that it's the odd man out, the weird Maverick, that's the only one you fight at the end of the level.
Yeah, well, like, it's weird that it's just him. That it's not like, oh, hey, let's rematch all of them. Which, to be fair, this level is long.
Yeah.
You know, this one's a marathon. It is not a sprint. But, like, it's weird that it's just him.
It's almost kind of like taking the classic Mega Man boss rush thing, and instead being like, here's the appetizer. You know what the main course is going to be.
Yeah. And then, like...
I won't ask for your order. You're getting boss rush.
Yeah. Well, and then even, like, it's not... Like, we fight him.
Right.
And then, we fight RNG Spider.
Yeah.
Which, I think I said, I was like, this boss fight is just that one Mario Party game. Like, where you have, like, the coins in the treasure chest and you put it down the pipe.
It really is.
And then wherever it ends up, that's where it ends up.
It's like, I like the idea that there's, like, the path and you look and it's like, okay, which way is he gonna go so I can shoot him? It happens a little too fast for my liking.
Yes. I'd like a little more time to just process that.
Yeah. You saw, even with, like, my big bag of sub-tanks, how close that one was.
Yes.
Because he does a lot of damage. He trips you up when he, like, also throws the little spiders at you that move at different speeds, and they all look identical, so you don't know which one's going to come at you.
Yep.
And then just having to predict where he's going to land.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, your Buster barely does any damage to him. It's his weakness.
Yeah.
What a mess.
And that's
Spirit
Sigma,
Halloween.
that's like Sigma, Castle 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sigma
The
base
first
one. It's just like, oh great, we have more.
Yeah. But then, as indicated by our early arrival of Boomer Kowanger, it's time for the boss rush.
Yeah, well, and this is the weird thing too. So, like, it's Chill Penguin and Storm Eagle, and only them.
And only them in stage 2. They did what the first Mega Man did, where they broke up the boss rush and put them in levels with other bosses, instead of the marathon method where you do them all in one go.
That's the level.
Yeah. And I don't mind it that much.
Yeah, like, it's definitely... It's a little more manageable breaking it up like this. It's just weird that, like, Boomer Kowanger is just by himself.
Yeah.
In, like, this already very long level.
If they had put him at the start of a level with another boss in there, you would have just been like, oh, okay, we're doing boss rush now. But it's the fact that he's just there in that first level on his own. It's like, what
the? But also, we get another boss at the end of this.
Rengda Bengda?
This is a contender for Boomer Kowanger.
This is a really bad... At least Boomer Kowanger, like, comes from somewhere. It's a portmanteau of words. This is just, like... This is just a Skrillex title.
Well, even just, like, his design is, like, dumb. Because he's just the wall that's a face.
I mean, like, classic Mega Man.
Classic Mega Man would do
like
this too.
This is something totally within the norm for classic Mega Man.
Yeah. Just, again, because X tries to be a little more serious and...
Yeah.
stuff that, like...
It makes this look kind of weird.
It looks even sillier here.
I will say I do like how the fight is actually structured, though, with, like, the eyes that are, like, set on a timer to do, like, one of a like couple of random attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the thing how the walls kind of close in and there's the spikes at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the little centerpiece like moves around.
Yeah, the nose. Well, and that was the thing though, was like, because you took out both of the eyes and then it was just like, okay, you can't stand anywhere anymore. Wall jump or die.
And that's the thing. You can destroy that thing first and then fight the eyes. Like, you can destroy the different parts in any order. But more likely than not, you're going to destroy the eyes first. And so you're just like sitting there like a like a spider caught in the corner of a wall. Like, don't squish me.
Yo, wait, hold up. And we get to Sigma level 3.
Sigma level 3. It's kind of just more of stage 2.
This is just like, hey, here's the rest of the bosses.
Right, and they have like the level gimmicks from the corresponding boss levels before.
Yeah.
Sort of just a greatest hits level.
This makes me feel like, we need another level, like, screw it, let's just put them all here.
Just put them all here. It's not like an insane gauntlet, but it is very much just like repeat level themes, fight boss over again. It's a little copy paste.
Yeah. And then again we end it with another just like, all right, here's a boss.
D-Rex.
A car with teeth.
Yeah?
I actually like him better than the previous boss.
Yeah, this one's got more personality. It's a quirky idea for a boss.
Just the way that like he separates and you just kind of just have to position yourself in the right spot.
Uh-huh. And then the fact that he's weak to the boomerang, so you have to like you can't just jump and shoot, because when you're in the air the boomerang goes down, whereas when you're on the floor it goes up, so you have to make sure you're at the right level to hit him with the boomerang.
Yep. It's one of those play smart and you won't die bosses.
Yeah. Well, he gets kind of crazy at the end there. He starts going really fast and he's got that big like plasma blast thing that like takes up so much screen real estate.
Yeah.
That it's hard to dodge. It's weird, but it's very like, okay, this is on par with like the stuff we fight in the Wily stages.
Yeah. This feels like something Wily would build.
It might have been something he built, who knows?
Sigma just found it in his garage. It was like, neat.
He's like,
I'll take that.
He's like, wow, this robot is pretty impressive. Hang on, let's shave off the eyebrows. Okay.
Yeah, literally
now it's mine.
It's like the SpongeBob, like, there, now it's art.
Yep.
No, sorry. It was the guy, like, this is the only flaw.
That was the only flaw.
Oh, man. So,
our final stage.
Sigma's gamer pad. He's a Sigma gamer.
It's the tilted tower. Because you fight in the top chamber and then you die and you get so tilted that you farm for health drops and extra lives until you go back up there and fight him again.
So, I feel like this is as good a place as any to put this, my feelings about Sigma. Because, like...
Let's start talking about Sigma.
Like, on the one hand, I don't like Sigma. Like...
Yeah.
Because he feels like he needs to be taken so seriously. And again, I don't know anything past this game. Maybe he does... do anything more threatening or whatever. But, like, on the one hand, you know, try and take him seriously, but, like, he's so dumb.
Yeah. I know, like, in a later game, he sicks a Yellow Devil clone on you. And I'm like, okay, that's...
that's actually evil.
That's how you get me worked up.
But, like, here's the thing, too. Because, like, you may have noticed we were cracking a lot of jokes about Sigma.
Mm-hmm.
Like... How do I put this? It's like Kylo Ren in the Star Wars.
Yeah.
And, like, because he wants you to take him seriously. So if you don't, he becomes so much more entertaining of a character. He becomes
really funny.
Like, he genuinely... Because, like, he's built like a brick wall.
He's bad guy Buzz Lightyear.
Bad guy? Yes, we made that joke.
He's got the same, like, color palette. He's got the same head shape.
Yep. He's got, like, the Giga Chad, like, meme, like, jaw.
He's Buzz Lightyear if Woody wasn't there to set him straight.
But, like, and like, that's the thing is, like, we started cracking so many jokes, and it made me like him more because we weren't taking him seriously.
Yeah.
And that, like, made him more fun. So it's one of those things where, like...
It did, yeah.
I don't know. If you do take him seriously, he's really dumb.
Part of it is just, like, he just doesn't have the charm that Wily does.
Yeah, or even, like... the presence that, like, Vile did.
Yeah, because, like, they spent the whole game building up Vile.
Yeah, like, Vile felt like a threat. Sigma just felt like... Yeah, I mean, like, his face is there on the title scroll X screen.
It's the...
And he looks like he's making that stupid expression again.
Yeah.
That, like, mildly annoyed expression. And so, like, I can't take him seriously.
It's the two different roles, the tropes for them. They call them the dragon and the big bad. The dragon is the strongest guy, the strongest henchman of the big bad, aka a Darth Vader.
Yes.
And then the big bad is like a Palpatine. But in this case, it doesn't really work because the bad guy doesn't have the cool factor that the dragon does.
Yeah.
So...
that's kind of it. And so, like, the fact that, like, Sigma is the boss, the one masterminding all of this, but, like, we're kind of making jokes about him, made it more fun.
Yeah, it's the fact that, like, Wily is so, like, on top of being a credible threat, he's also very silly.
Yeah, well, the fact that, like, you know, Mega Man 2, I guess maybe spoilers for that, but, like... the final boss is that Wily, you know, is like, oh, I'm secretly a space alien or whatever, and then you realize that, like,
into an alien.
Yeah, and then after you beat it, you realize, oh no, it's just like it was just a hologram projector.
He has this little like fake machine.
Yeah, like pay no attention to the scientist that is also handsome sitting in this control booth, like. You know, and so
it's kind of, and he wasn't just like a generic mad scientist either, and like because there's like, you know, Dr. Eggman, who's also very iconic, and he's very like vain and bombastic. Wily is a bit more pitiful,
yes,
and so that creates an interesting dynamic. Whereas Sigma, like, he's just a by the numbers bad guy.
Yeah,
he's evil, like. Literally, he's evil for the sake of it, because his programming was corrupted. He was supposed to be a good guy, and then something just, you know, a cosmic ray flipped a bit in his system or whatever, and he's like, oh, I'm evil now. And then he goes on a rampage and does evil stuff.
Like, that's it. And, like, we watched the animated thing, and, like, it made him a little more credible. Like,
right.
Well, because we actually got to spend time with him and get to know him, and, like, you know, oh, he's, you know, he's a good guy, but also he doesn't have the morality restrictions that X does.
Yeah.
And, like...
And you can see the seeds early on of his betrayal, because it's like... You can see him seeing all this stuff that is inherently good in people and being like, I don't like that. And so it kind of, like, clues you into the fact, like, oh, he's turning.
Uh-huh. But, like, I don't know. Again, we spent this whole game with Vile, and then he's just kind of like, oh, here he is.
Uh-huh.
And he, you know, and I guess talking about the fight, like, he doesn't even do much in his fight. Like, I mean, the first thing he does is he's like, here, fight my dog.
Yeah. So, before you properly fight him, we get this fight with Velgotter, which I didn't even know that was the dog's name. I just called it the Sigma Pupper.
Yeah, like, we don't even learn his name. We
just like, fight my pet.
He's like, I could kill you, but I want my dog to kill you. like, my dog deserves a chance. Look, it's his birthday. he deserves a treat.
With that, though, like, the fight's kind of interesting, because, you know, Velgotter, like, hops around the walls and stuff, and has, like, if you're staying up in the corner, just wall jumping and trying to stay away, he has those, like, fire jets that move upwards.
Yeah, like, he's got a bunch of cool stuff.
It's almost cooler than Sigma.
That's exactly where I was gonna go, is you beat it, and then Sigma comes back in, and he's like, I left to take a quick piss, come back, and you've killed my dog.
Actually, like, I kind of want to highlight this, because Sigma's dialogue here is very interesting to me. It's not this, like, fury, like, no, my beloved pet, how dare you, I'll avenge my dog, or whatever. He's literally just like, yo, you blew up my dog, that was cool. Alright, so let's fight. Like, he doesn't care.
I know, and that's why it's like, again, if you're trying to engage with him on a serious level, how do you take that seriously? But, like, on a comic level, it's so funny.
He's so nonchalant, just like, oh, cool. You killed him.
You killed my dog. Alright, then I'm gonna kill you.
He's like, oh, I thought he was gonna rip you to shreds, but you ripped him to shreds. Well, someone died, so I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, and then...
So
because here's the thing, too. So then you actually fight Sigma himself.
Yes.
Like, we have been building this guy up this whole game by having you fight his mooks. And, like, the first phase of his fight, you don't even fight him. Mm-hmm. And then, like, they just don't even animate him. He has, like, 6 sprites, and all he does is he just jumps around.
This first phase of the Sigma fight is so lame.
It's so
like,
so dumb.
I'll say this, like, I made it look lamer because I had, like, practiced this fight. Before knowing what to do and that you can cheese his little wall jump thing, this was a very hard fight. I died to this one a lot because, like, if you take any damage from him, like, if he connects with you, that's about 1/3 of your health gone.
Oh, yeah. And mind you, that's with the armor.
And that's with the armor, yes. But, like, he whips out his laser blade, and because of, you know, the limitations of the Super Nintendo sprites, it just looks like a plastic lightsaber.
Yup. I bought this on eBay, isn't it cool?
He got it for like $15 at Walmart. If even that. Maybe it was 10.
But like,
and then he just like hops back and forth from the walls.
Yup. It's like, it's so funny though, because he gives off the energy that he thinks this is the coolest thing. Which again, like, on a serious note, he's so lame, but like him thinking he's the coolest while doing something so lame makes him hilarious.
He's, like, imagining in his head that he's striking this dramatic pose as he slams up against the wall and then jumps to the next one. Like, but then it's actually just this, like, his little half smile, and he's like, ha-ha, 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 ha-ha.
I'm gonna get you this time.
And, like, the worst part is, like, the programming of this boss, because he does have other attacks. He will slash at you with his beam saber. He will shoot at you with his buster. He's got the weapon layout of Zero. He's got a buster and a saber.
What the heck?
I wasn't even sure if you noticed it because we were too busy laughing at how stupid the fight was. But like while we were playing, he did like at one moment take shots at me with his buster.
I completely missed it.
It's so easy to miss because it's just so nothing.
He just doesn't fight him. What a loser.
It's so stupid. And the music is really intense during this fight, but it's also a really short loop.
Yeah.
So that frustrates me too.
Yeah. Well, like, could you imagine if the fight just ended after that? Just think for a moment.
And credits roll.
Like, I'm glad they didn't, because that would be like the worst note to end on.
They King K. Rool him, just his body just plops down and then the credits roll.
But no, we get one more thing.
Yeah. I'm remembering how Terminal Montage did it with the head like floating up and like doing that goofy laugh. He's like
It's so... I will say this, like, yes, X gets to go into the Hall of Fame of I fight hands in a face. But, like, this at least is a better fight than his previous phase. Like,
it is.
There's some nuance, there's some challenge, this is interesting, it looks cool.
Oh, I missed this in my notes. The little, like, tunnel that you go up to fight him.
Oh, that's right.
I wrote down in my notes, I called it the Mulligan Tunnel.
Mulligan Tunnel?
Because you die to the boss, and just take a mulligan, just refill your stuff, and head back up there. Try again.
Oh, man. The thing, too, is that, like, because I know, like, the Zero games have reused this model of, here's a big thing in the center, and then here are two hands that just move around, dodge them, and wall jump, and ride them up to bop the head. Which, right. I mean, that's just kind of a Capcom Mega Man.
Right, and even classic Mega Man has done very similar stuff with its final boss fights.
And yeah, like I said, like, of the phases of this at least is interesting. It's cool that he brought his dog back to be his wall armor.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was just like a bigger version of his dog until I saw the name. It's the Sigma, Velgotter bot. Like, I didn't realize that it's just like a giant version of the dog that he hooks into. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, okay. I was just focused on the head and hands.
Literally taking a page out of Base's... Base hasn't even been invented yet. Well, it's literally just out of Mega Man's playbook.
That's the thing, though. If you remember, Base in Mega Man 7 has treble. They just took this idea and did it better in classic Mega Man. And they gave the dog to a more interesting bad guy. Yeah. Oh, I'm angry about Sigma.
Yeah, again, it's... I have such feelings about Sigma because he's so lame. But, like...
I like to think that Sigma is a self-appointed name because he's like, oh yeah, I'm a Sigma male. I'm all that.
I'm so cool. Like, again, the thought that Sigma thinks he's as cool as he isn't.
He's less cool than he believes he is.
Yes, that's the wording I was looking for. Yeah.
But
it makes him more fun.
Yeah. To actually give this final boss fight its dues, for one thing, it's got an actual, like, unique music track to it.
Yep.
Which is this kind of, like, slow, intense orchestral thing. And I like that it uses the leitmotif of Sigma's theme in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the majority of this game's soundtrack doesn't do leitmotifs. Like, everything's just a unique track, and they don't, like, call back to it. This one actually does, like, use musical callbacks. It's like, okay, I like that. We're trying to establish something here with the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's a tough fight. I'll give it that.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta think, too, this is 3 fights in a row, no break.
Mm-hmm. And specifically on this final one, you need reflexes.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much that gets thrown at you, and the fact that, like, each piece of him kind of moves at its own pace without, taking into consideration what the other pieces are doing. you can get some awful RNG where it's just like, oh, he's doing the flamethrower, and this claw is charging at you, and this one's shooting lightning. And so, like...
Die!
I find that the only way to beat this boss is to damage boost and use my sub-tanks. Because, like, I just don't get how you dodge everything.
There's probably... And again, like... One thing
sure
that X established is that there are patterns to stuff, and just kind of memorizing them.
And if nothing else, you could turn invisible with the Sting Chameleon ability, get up on top of the thing, and then switch to Armor Armadillo to hit him. I just came up with that now.
Yeah.
I'm kicking myself for not trying that. But, like, there are ways around it. It's not like it's, you know, hopeless, but... It is a real, like, check of your skill.
Yup.
So I respect it for that, at least, even if Sigma himself is not necessarily
I respect the challenge, guy. I don't respect Sigma as a character.
Despite what they say, I hate the player, not the game.
Yup.
And then our ending...
The most Capcom ending ever. Castle Dracula has fallen.
It's pretty cliche. As far as video game endings go.
As X just thinks about, boy, this is going to be a long franchise.
He's like, Rock had to go through all this. I'm one game in and I'm tired.
Man, I hate fighting.
I will say the music and the scenery is nice, least, which is a good send-off for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were definitely hoping they could make sequels.
Yeah, well, I want to just point out, we made the joke, because, like, the cast roll's coming in, and like, they even listed, like, Zero and Vile, and I was just like, everyone died, the end.
Really, though? Everyone except X dies.
Just for some reason, it was so funny. Like...
Now, the one thing kind of seeing, like, the secret meaning to the ending hidden behind the actual ending.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of why Mega Man X happened was because of their passion for wanting to keep the Mega Man franchise alive and not being quite sure how to do that, just continuing with the route of classic Mega Man. And so this game sort of gave the devs a chance to do new things, try new ideas, and it gave them new confidence to keep the series going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm especially grateful that classic Mega Man continued alongside X. Because as we said, a lot of stuff that came from this game influenced classic Mega Man in a lot of really positive ways, while still keeping the spirit of classic Mega Man. And then it's really impressive that they managed to get a total of 8 games in the X series, like,
I know,
before this one ran its course. Like, they got their momentum back, and they kept it for quite a while.
Yep, absolutely. Also, I just want to point out, just, like, listing all of the names and then as you as Mega Man X. Like, I always appreciate when a game acknowledges the player. Just as like a, hey, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for playing our game.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's a lot of them out there, and you chose to play this one.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Always just makes me smile.
And it's also funny because, like, a lot of times we make the joke when in those old games, when they show, like, all the enemies, we always put the "and you" at the end, like, you were one of the enemies. But, like, the fact that they kind of, like, flip that, they're like, "and you as Mega Man X." Like, you were the one that played through the game. It's like, oh, that's nice.
You helped make the choices.
You decided the value of the variable known as X.
I mean, really, you did. And then that's the thing, too, is, like, I would have loved it if we just ended there. But
then
good old...
We get that silly, jazzy, like, swing music during the credits.
Yep.
That, like, does not match the vibe of the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm. And again, Sigma!
And then Sigma comes back at the very end.
Just him, oh, you didn't actually kill me, I was just a copy or whatever of my consciousness. I'm actually alive and I'm coming to kill you in the next game. That's totally gonna happen.
He's like, I'll see you very soon. And I'm like, wow. If I had this much confidence, like, people might hate me.
you almost gotta respect it. Almost. I don't respect Sigma, but I almost do.
Mm-hmm. I also don't like that that last screen with Sigma is where the game, like, hangs, and it's like, you can't do anything until you power off the system.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I love to sit on a nice, like, thank you for playing, or like a the end screen or something. Or like something with nice music.
Yeah.
We just get Sigma being like, I'm the last thing you saw in this game.
Yeah. I just, again, highlights that I just don't like Sigma. But also,
I'll give credit where it's due if I play the rest of the games in the X series, which I would like to do. And if I see him do anything cool, then like credit where it's due, I'll give him that. But like, he's
based
not
on
a great
this
bad
game,
guy in this first game.
He's not great. And like, I don't know. It's kind of a sour note to go out on.
It is.
But like, I also get that they're like, hey, you know, we want to make sure that you know that like, hey, the adventure isn't over. If this does well, we will make more.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it did.
You know, when you get to the end screen of a game and like these old games, how you'd like rush out of the room and get all your friends to be like, look, I beat it, here's the end. And they'd see the end screen and they'd be like, wow, that's amazing. I can imagine, like, because it sits on the end for a little bit. So you like go out of the room to get your brothers or whatever.
Rickroll this kid.
And then you come back in and it's Sigma and he's like, I will be back.
Oh man. Alright, Terminator. You do you.
It's, how does he describe it too? He says like, you destroyed my body, but my spirit remains. It's like, robots don't have whatever. You could just say your data or your consciousness. It's like,
you know, it's funny. I believed Metal Gear Rising Revengeance more than I believed him.
Oh. No, that's what Sigma needs, is like the
yeah,
just X like punching him in the stomach, standing here.
Oh, that actually
that would have been
killed
a better
me.
ending. I'm
That
sorry.
actually killed me.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, time to end this. Now we will discuss our favorite sections of the game, just with various questions that we have. The first one that I will ask you, I have a theory as to what your answer is going to be, but I'll ask anyway. What was your favorite weapon? Specifically, like the weapons that the Mavericks give you for beating them.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think it is, because it's definitely the Storm Tornado.
That is what I was guessing.
I had a feeling, because like you used that one a fair bit, and I was like, this weapon is just cool.
Yo. Just shreds through everything.
Yup. Like, I remember, because of that one bit in, I think it was Launch Octopus's stage, where you kept having to fight those mini-bosses, and so you just use it, and it would just, like, delete them.
Yeah.
I thought that was just sick.
Right.
What about yourself?
For me, it comes down between two of them. As you can imagine, because you just pointed out that I used it a lot, Storm Tornado is one of the two that I like the best, just because it's incredibly useful. It's maybe not always the most fun. I find that I use it more during like stressful sections where I just want to make it easy. So to comment on another weapon that I find is like more fun to use regularly, I would actually give it to Chameleon Sting.
Mm.
And Part of why it's sort of a tie is that the charge ability to Chameleon Sting is another one of those things that's like, it's less for fun and more for I just want to get through this part of the level.
Yeah.
But like the normal like triple like spread shot attack from the Chameleon Sting, I actually really like that one.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I was a little sad at myself that we had to do Sting Chameleon last. Because that meant I got to spend less time with it than I did with the other weapons. As for some other ones, like I also kind of like Flame Mammoth's weapon, but I don't like the charge ability because it's kind of just less useful than the regular ability. But I don't know. I would give it to either the Chameleon Sting or the Storm Tornado.
Yeah. All right, so it's on me. You kind of lump these together. What is your favorite stage and boss?
This one is another one that's kind of a joint answer. Normally, I feel like it actually would be Flame Mammoth, just because I really like his design and he's a lot of fun. But as I brought up, you should probably do Chill Penguin stage first, and then it makes his stage worse. And then even the better version of his stage, you don't get to dash when you do that one.
Yeah.
Unless you, like, get the dash boots and then die.
Yeah.
Before beating Chill Penguin, which, like, who's gonna do that?
Who's that bad at the game?
I would maybe do that on purpose, just so I could experience the best version of Flame Mammoth stage, but it just adds more backtracking than is necessary.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up, because I really do like Flame Mammoth, and especially as a boss fight. I like his fight, but if there's like a single level that I could pick where I just love everything about it, it's Storm Eagle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. No, it's up there for me too. It's a good contender. There's a lot of good stuff in that level. But actually, it is not what I picked for mine.
Really? Okay.
I was this close to doing it, and then I thought about it. I think my favorite is Armored Armadillo.
Yeah, nice.
I really like that level. Like, there's so many fun set pieces. Just getting to ride on the minecarts, the big spiky dude thing that chases you.
Yeah.
It's got the Hadoken secret, which is neat. And then like I also just like Armored Armadillo. Like, I like how you remove his armor, and then that makes him easier to beat. Like, I don't know. I just think that's cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That stage is definitely a high point.
And it's got the throwback to classic Mega Man with the one bat enemy. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. That one's great as well.
Very good, very memorable. Also one of like, it's not too terribly long, but it's one of like the longer stages. Like, it doesn't just like end immediately.
Yep. Next, I want to ask about the Sigma stages now. The way I wrote down the question, it is just the boss. If the actual design of the stages themselves influences your opinion, then cool, tell me about that too. But just in general, I want to know, like, what's your favorite Sigma stage boss?
It's totally Vile.
Yeah, me too.
Like, look, Vile had presence in this game, and that's why I liked him. And compared to Sigma.
And I do think it's cool that in the remake, they made a whole new campaign where you play as Vile. Just showing that he is also a very significant and cool character.
An important character, yep. His design rules, like...
Purple Boba Fett.
Yeah, exactly.
What's not to like?
He's good.
Yeah, I will agree for all of the points that we just made about how Vile is a more interesting villain than Sigma.
Yeah. Okay, next. I'm assuming that your answer was also Vile.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So, moving on to favorite song. Literally the hardest question in this list.
There's some bangers.
Yep.
There's a lot of bangers. I think really, I just can't deny how many times I've listened to both the original and several remixes of Spark Mandrill's theme.
Yeah, it's good.
Dang good.
It's really good.
That was the sleeper hit. I mean, like, we had, as we talked about, like, the nostalgia for Storm Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
But Spark Mandrill was, like, the new one that hit me that I was like, wow, this is good.
That's funny you mentioned Storm Eagle, because that was mine.
What are our two picks? It's the two that Terminal Montage highlighted.
They're so good.
They're so good.
I loved it. Yeah, again, it was... Because, again, I could hum along to this one, because I had a weirdly nostalgic tie to it. And so I was like, oh yeah, I know this song.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's...
It's great.
Alrighty, back to you.
Hoorah. What was your favorite moment? We'll split this one into two, or favorite moment, just like from the game in general, as a game, and then your favorite moment from our playthrough.
Okay. So, I kind of have two, because I have one that was my favorite moment, but it was not technically a part of the game, and then so I have, like, another thing that was actually in the game.
Okay.
Like, my favorite moment in the game was you explaining to me how X was a variable.
Right, the origin of his name.
Which, like, that was technically in the Day of Sigma animated thing that we watched afterwards.
Right. I think it's in later games as well, and, like, maybe even, like, a blurb in the instruction manual or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't, like, specifically brought up in the game.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's in that weird space where, like, I can't quite count it, but, like... It's
in a way you could at least count it as, like, being from our playthrough of the game, a favorite moment.
Because that really resonated with me, and I clicked with that a lot. And I was like, okay, I love this bit of just world building and theming. It's good. Mm-hmm. But if you argued it's not in the game, it's, like, in the game proper, I would have to say Zero giving us his arm cannon.
Yeah.
That was... Because I remember... it's so funny, Sakura was with us in the call when we were playing. And, like, you did the whole thing, and you're like, so this is where you get, like, the Buster up... Or, like, you get an upgrade, and you're like, we're not gonna get this now, we're gonna get it later.
We're gonna skip it.
Okay. Why? And then seeing, like... You know, the thematics of, like, Zero being like, here is the last piece that you need in order to, like, actually win this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it makes his sacrifice that much more impactful. It's like you already blew yourself up to stop Vile's, you know, plot armor, and then potentially even gave me energy so that I could actually stand a chance in this fight. And then, you know, now you're like, you're giving me your arm cannon is like the last thing that you're gonna do. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
But what about yourself?
Alright, so, embarrassing confession, I forgot to write down any notes on these last two. So I'm kind of going from memory. And, like, the reason I, like, forgot to put anything down here is because I was really thinking about it. I was really struggling to pick just one favorite moment from the game. And I don't want to say this is a cop-out answer, but I think you're right. I think that moment of Zero giving his Buster to X and, like, sort of passing the torch down to him and, like, you, like, finally being complete, like, that's really cool.
It's really cool. It ties into that theme that you were talking about getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It's just awesome.
It is.
So for you, I know it was a short playthrough, but do you have anything from our playthrough specifically that was your favorite?
Why don't you answer this one first? I'll kind of be thinking about it just to make sure. There's like a couple of moments that I can think of.
Yeah, there definitely were a couple for me. But I think if I have to give it to anything, it's our constant joke of just grabs health like it never happened.
Like it never happened.
We did that so much, and it was so funny.
But it's so funny how often it happened.
like genuinely, like you were almost always at full health, and if you weren't, you just grab the health and then be like, yeah, like it never happened.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. That's good. I think I do have my answer on this one. It's hard to say, because there's a lot of fun stuff about this. I'm almost tempted to say something that's not even part of the playthrough, and it's our back and forth during the history section of recording this podcast, because that was fun.
That was fun.
But I think from us playing through the game, a moment that I really had a lot of fun with was when we got to Sigma. Mostly just because I was going up against all of your baggage that was sort of aimed at this game and wanting to show you that it's a good game, and knowing that we were coming up to the later half of the game, which kind of disappoints a little bit more because Sigma's not as cool of a villain, and thinking oh, we're not gonna have fun doing this, and he's gonna walk away from this being like, man, that game sucked. But the fact that we made so many jokes at Sigma's expense, all of he's a Sigma gamer and he lives in the Tilted Tower, and we had all these jokes at Sigma's expense. It was just really fun.
It was so much that was a close second for me, was just making fun of Sigma.
Yeah. It really was a case of turning lemons into lemonade.
But we shot lemons at him.
We shot lemons, and they turned into lemonade when they squished into his face and exploded.
Sigma's lemonade stand.
And it's again, apologies to big fans of the X series if this is your favorite iteration of Mega Man and you think Sigma's a super cool villain. Hey, good on you. That's fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we spent this whole episode trashing him, but you can see how much fun it is for us.
It was, and that's the thing too, is that I feel I wouldn't have had as much fun if I didn't dunk on him a bit.
Yeah.
And that's part of what made it fun for me, was that it was you can have fun.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be serious all the time. You could be silly and have fun.
Right. So I think I would give my answer to that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe an honorable mention would just be your reaction to seeing the Ryu cosplaying Dr. Light.
That one's up there too.
Because that was the thing, you'd brought that up, that it was in the mobile game or whatever, and I'd forgotten that it was in the base game, because I didn't get it during my practice playthrough.
Yeah, because I thought it would just be Dr. Light being hey, here's a Hadoken. Seeing him in full Ryu cosplay was great.
Seeing how happy you were that happened, that also made my night.
Yep.
Well, it is time for us to wrap up. And with all of the discussion that we had about this game, about your past with it, and about me trying to persuade you otherwise, I would love to get the last word in and just be no, this game's cool, there's nothing bad about it. But to give our final thoughts, I think I will go first, being the one that showed you the game, and then we'll pass it to you and you can get the final word.
Yep.
On that. Okay, so for me, I think the game holds up both on its own and as a sequel to the classic series.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I much prefer the world and the characters of classic Mega Man, because I love just the cartoony fun vibe that those games have. But I think, like, on all gameplay fronts, as far as just playing the game is concerned, this is way above and beyond the gameplay loop of, like, the NES Mega Mans.
Mm-hmm.
And even Mega Man 7, it's my precious baby. I love it with all my heart, but I can acknowledge that Mega Man 7 has parts that frustrate me, whereas there's, like, much less of that in X. There are so many little things that were, like, originally good ideas from the classic that they just take a step further. And you can feel that evolution. The game feels good to control as well, and I say it all the time, but, like, character movement is my favorite aspect of playing a game. If a character feels good to control, then I'm way more likely to stick with a game. And again, as I said, like, I love the show don't tell approach to storytelling. Since it doesn't have a lot of story, it's kind of cool that a lot more of it is, like, working in the background while you're just playing the game. If the game had a deeper story to it, then yeah, maybe I'd like some more cutscenes and, you know, some more explanation for the world. But, like, because they did such a minimal approach, I think they really nailed, like, how to do it without, like, wasting your time saying things that, you know, you can just intuit by playing the game. And then best of all, just it's super solid theming. Like, I don't want to just, like, parrot everything that was said in the Sequelitis video, but, like, come on. The whole aspect of the game is about growing stronger and about overcoming your weaknesses. And the fact that the game opens by showing you what your weaknesses are and then saying, like, hey, let's get better. Let's go beat all the bad guys and let's make something out of ourselves. I love that. I love the vibe of that, and I hope to see more games that can make me feel that way, that I'm, like, proud of accomplishing something by the end of the game. And then, of course, to my final point, because it was how we found the game in the first place was through the Sequelitis video. There's so much discourse to be had about Aaron Hansen as an internet personality and about his career and about the paths that he's chosen to do all that. Sidestepping all of that for now, that video on both the classic Mega Man games and also how Mega Man X improved on the classic games kick-started my profound love for video game analysis. It is an integral part of why I am the way I am, is because I saw that video when I was super young and impressionable. And I agree with so many of the points in that video, and that's what made me want to try Mega Man X. And so, like, because it has that unique history, where it's not just a video game, but, like, a message conveyed through a video game, I'm always going to love Mega Man X just for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was good.
Yeah, with that, I will pass it on to you now. I am so curious to hear what you have to say after we've talked about everything.
Yeah, so here's the thing, too. Like, again, my feelings about this game, you were up against a lot with this game. You know, like, again, this game had a lot going against it for me. But ironically, the one variable I didn't count on was you.
Yes!
As Mega Man X.
Oh! Like, tied it into the credits!
like, genuinely, I didn't bank on playing this game with someone who I'm already so close with.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think that's what I needed, is I needed somebody who didn't invalidate, you know, my feelings and my experiences, you know, surrounding this game before getting to play it. And, you know, also highlighted, hey, here's why I like this game and what makes it good. And you're, you know, like we talked about this beforehand, like before we went into this, because I expressed to you, I was like, hey man, I know you want to show me this game, but you need to know, like, what's going on. And you're like, okay, I understand all of that. I want you to set aside all of your feelings about this as like an entire franchise, and let's just focus on this as just this game.
Mm-hmm.
As just a standalone title. And while it's still not, like, my top favorite in the Mega Man franchise, I finally get it. Like, it finally clicked for me. I get why people like this era of Mega Man. It really is all of the best aspects of classic Mega Man, and just pushed one step further. And it's so fascinating to see. And so, like, I will take what, you know, that one friend said about, like, oh, skip the classics and go straight to here. I'm going to say no. Like, you should definitely play the classic Mega Man games, and then afterwards play this, because it builds on it in such interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, I can appreciate them more now because I played classic Mega Man. And so it makes seeing where they took it that much better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I said, it's not my all-time favorite in all of these, because nothing will ever trump Battle Network 3.
Me neither. Battle Network 3, best game ever.
But this is definitely up there. And again, it was blitzing through this game with you and just having a good time together. Was, like, so much fun. Even watching, like, the Day of Sigma short afterwards and just having fun, like, doing that. So thank you for being an unpredictable variable and changing the outcome of this game for me.
I was the... I was the zero passing on the Z-Buster to you.
Essentially.
Oh, that's great. This was a longer episode, mostly just because of things outside of the game that we wanted to discuss, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah, me too.
And with that, as we wrap up our discussion of Mega Man X, we have something really exciting to tease for next time. And before we get to the proper teaser, I want to mention that our next episode is going to be our 20th episode of Tradin Faves.
Oh man, I didn't even realize that.
It's like, I was kind of thinking like, oh, we didn't do like milestone stuff for like each year that we've done a Tradin Faves thing, aside from like maybe our end of year wrap up videos. But I was thinking like, oh, there's not really like fancy milestones on the show. And I was like, well, we're coming up on our 20th episode.
Yeah.
And like, we don't release these on a regular schedule. They just come out when they do. So I figured like, let's make this next episode like a special one. In addition to like the actual game that we'll be playing, I have a few surprises made that will make the episode more exciting.
Oh boy.
And I will not be revealing those to you. You'll see them when the episode comes out.
This will be exciting then, because it's my turn to pick.
Yeah, go ahead and tease that game for us.
All right, so next time on Tradin Faves, a classic RPG previously unreleased outside of Japan was recently given new life in beautiful HD 2D. Many adventures await us as we travel through time, from prehistoric past to present day and even the distant future. The choice is ours, because next time we'll be playing the 2022 remake of Live Alive.
Oh, not Chrono Cross? Sorry.
Wow.
Ruined that ending. I'm so sorry.
No. It's all good. Yeah, we're finally getting to Live Alive. This is a game that I played that I have been so eager for us to sit down and play. And part of the only reason I didn't do it sooner is because of the logistics of like, okay, how are we going to do this together? Because I have a physical copy. How do we stream it? And, you know, now that you have the means of streaming a console game to me, gloves are off, dude. We're getting into this. I'm so excited to play this game.
Dude, I am so hyped to play this game. This is one of those ones that's always been on my radar to play, like ever since the re-release happened. And I'd been dying to, but budget has always been such an issue for me, and I've always had to choose between that and other games that have come out, and so I just couldn't get to playing it. And now you are the wonderful big brother who has the monies to buy the games.
I already bought it, so it's mine, and so you could just come over and play it.
And that's the beauty of physical copies of games.
That's why I like physical.
you can loan it to me. So, oh man, this next episode is going to be great. Like I am already super excited to play Live Alive.
I'm very excited for you to play it. We're gonna have a great time with this one.
It's like I can tell, like I get the same feelings looking at it as I felt about Chrono Trigger, where I was just like the little bits I see of it, I'm just like, I'm probably gonna love this game.
But that will be next time.
For now, we must bid adieu to you all.
Adieu, adieu, adieu to you and you and you.
Riding on cars!
You get copyright claimed.
I might. Who's gonna stop me? We don't make money on this podcast. They're like, we'll take away your monetization. And I'm like, we don't have monetization.
Joke's on you.
Numbskull. I just started recording on my end. So you'll have to wait your turn, mister. All right, here we go. 3. Yeah.
I just looked at my notes, and I have my old notes from the last game. I just... Princess Peach is Goku. It's just big letters.
Game theory!
That's just a theory. Oh, I gotta tell you. Apparently... The new Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, right?
Yeah.
So apparently, if you have a team of like all of the the mini Gokus and then like the adult Goku, you get unique dialogue of them all. Was somebody messing with the Dragon Balls? It's like, oh, that must be like Poir or Oolong playing a trick on me. And then if you have Goten in there, he's like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. It's so good. Have fun editing out all that silence as I tried to find that comic I was talking about.
Oh. That's alright. Silence is easy to edit out. It's when we're talking that it's hard to find the cutoff point.
Silence is easy. Talking is hard.
Wow, you just described my entire life.